Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Nerd Rage Gaming Pokemon Locals. I am here with you today. My name is Dan, and I am here with Rafal Gladitz, the GLC Wizard. He's a pretty good player of his own right.
Appreciate it.
And
Thank
we're,
you very
of
much.
course, and we're going to be talking through some excellent Paldea Evolved gameplay today. So while we're getting set up, Rafal, why don't you introduce yourself?
Of course, my name is Rafal Gladys. Some of you may know me as the host of the Memory Capsule podcast and perennial GLC player at regionals because we're on the day two grind still. On the other hand, right next to me is Dan Huger, who just had a top 32 finish in Milwaukee.
I did. God.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Thank you. Number 29 with Arceus Giratina. 8-1 day one, and then day two, my deck told me to go do something non-professional.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
we are here. But getting back to here, we have Paul Giza and Eli Greenfield. Paul is playing Gardevoir EX, and Eli is playing possibly the most obnoxious deck to come out of this past weekend, Arceus Keys. Rafal, what exactly is Arceus Keys?
So, Arceus Keys was a deck that got cooked up over the weekend at Milwaukee Regionals by, I believe, Joe Turrentine, Dominic Malitsky, Christian Fontenot, their testing group, and it essentially involved Arceus V-Star, Aerodactyl V-Star, and Klefki. Um, Arceus being just kind of the most consistent attacker and setup card in the game, and Aerodactyl and Klefki being the most obnoxious and game-stopping cards in the meta. Mash them all together. Every other card in the deck is essentially just like a burnable card. You got your trekking shoes, you got your battle VIP passes. We do have Eli here having a slightly different version of the list with Flying Pikachu, probably to adapt to the Paldea Evolved meta. But that is essentially the idea of the deck. You have Arceus as your main attacker, your main setup card. You have Starbirth to find any card you want. And then it's partnered with just cards that make your opponent unable to play the game for as much as possible.
It is one of those weird decks that you take prizes, you're actively engaging with the game, but your goal is still just to make your opponent sad. And it works very effectively. So, if I remember correctly, in the format over the weekend, Aerodactyl was specifically targeting Mew VMAX and then also Lugia V Star. And I believe the Klefki's mainly targeting the Lost Zone box decks.
Correct. And also targeting Mew, because
Yes.
Mew can also, Genesect just kind of gets slowed to a halt. Unless you have Fusion Energy on them.
So, what do you think's Eli's motivation going towards Flying Pikachu here?
Um, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. And it looks like with fighting energy, there's still Aerodactyl in there.
Yeah, he does seem to be playing Aerodactyl. He also has Path of the Peak, so again, another just like consistent disruption card. I'm assuming the Pikachu is largely for the Chien-Pao decks, which are going to be incredibly popular. Moving forward in the meta, a lot of people are trying to figure out the right way to build it, and a lot of the ways that it's being built right now, with Palkia and Chien-Pao as your primary attackers, just kind of gets walled by Pikachu. Chien-Pao cannot hit Pikachu, and then Palkia can't one-shot it, and then gets one-shot back. So I'm assuming Pikachu is largely for the Chien-Pao Palkia matchup. Nonetheless, the deck over the weekend, one of its worst matchups was Gardevoir, and I still, other than having Path to the Peak, I still don't necessarily know what Eli is going for here. As a counter to Gardevoir, other than just kind of having those paths to the peak and hoping they stick. I don't.
Which isn't a bad plan, especially with the Klefki down too, just to eliminate stuff like Mew from Celebrations to get set up. And one note before we keep going here, I'm sure anyone watching this says, Dan, Paul just put down a Metal Energy and is now searching his deck for two basic Pokemon. That doesn't seem right. And they would be correct.
Correct.
So for our first couple weeks, when a new set comes out here at Nerd Rage, what we always try to do is give players the opportunity to test out the new decks, try out the new things, see what they're going to want to use going into the new format. So for the first couple weeks, Paldea Evolve is going to be legal and proxies are legal. Ideally, no offense, Paul, we would like the proxies to actually be a proxy card, not a Metal Energy with Battle VIP written on it.
Well,
but...
you see, Dan, Paul is actually borrowing my Gardevoir deck, and that deck currently contains 3 real Battle VIP passes and 1 that says Battle VIP pass on a Metal Energy. Paul conveniently played the one.
I appreciate him picking
kind
that
of
one.
Embarrasses me a little bit here, but I swear the rest of the Battle VIP passes in the deck are real ones.
That's fine. It's a good way for us to tell people that if they do want to try out their new stuff in a competitive environment, this is the place to do so for the first couple weeks of the format.
Definitely.
Obviously, That is exempted for challenges, cups, or anything else, just for little
Of
like
course, these are
leagueies.
our little locals. They are not sanctioned events. You cannot be rolling in next Thursday with your Paldea Evolved printer cards. You do need to be, or sorry, you can't be rolling into a challenge with your Paldea Evolved printer cards.
Correct.
Only our Thursday locals at the moment.
So, and on the note of choices on Paul's end, it looks like he did go into the Mew, even with the Klefki in the active. And uh, for him, at least, Eli just passed it right back. So we have a real clash of good draws here going on either end.
Yeah, I see Eli with only 2 cards. Is that 2 Paths to the Peak?
It is. It is
Someone,
indeed. And
someone did not
I
shuffle
believe
enough.
he top decked a Lightning Energy, which he attached to his second Arceus V.
Yes, in case Paul somehow has some sort of like explosive setup here, blows up that Arceus, and then Eli's just like loses the game. Um, Paul, I will say, as soon as he got paired and told he would be on stream, he really loudly said that he has never played this deck before. He has not played Gardevoir. He has not played a lot of Stage 2 evolving decks for a little while now. He has been a Mew player for a while. So I am curious to see how he will kind of handle playing Gardevoir, especially now that the power of the deck has increased, but so has kind of the skill and some of the decision making in it. With things like Super Rod, with things like Iono and Reversal Energy, and kind of the way you set up your board. I'm curious to see how he'll kind of maneuver around what is kind of just a new deck for him. So it's going to be interesting to see what is supposed to be your new BDIF, but we have a a very good player in Paul, but someone who is not experienced with the deck, kind of learning it as we go along. I think it's going to be interesting to watch that.
So I would agree with that. Well, obviously, when we're talking about players here, I do want to make sure we're giving some good, maybe criticism of the plays to see what the approach
Of
was.
course.
And for here, and I'm glad you gave that caveat for Paul, I don't know if I loved going into the Mew because it seemed pretty clear that Eli's hand was not great. So would it not have been better to get 3 Ralts down rather than 2 Ralts in the Mew, knowing the Mew is a dead card right now?
I do see what you mean when you use that battle pass. Yeah, I don't necessarily know. The Klefki stuff is something that even like the best of players will just kind of forget sometimes. I don't know if Paul
Yes.
necessarily thought about for a second that like, oh yeah, just like my default setup seems to be Mew, gotta try to get another battle pass, and in reality, like that Klefki just kind of prevents that from happening. I don't know if that necessarily crossed his mind in the moment, but it seems like he is well a turn behind. So is Eli. So Paul is setting up perfectly fine, just a little bit slower than he'd like to.
Well, and that's something you mentioned, and I think it's really good to note here. Gardevoir currently in the current format is maybe not aggressive, but you expect to fall behind a prize or two, and then you expect to take a couple big prizes and big multi-prize knockouts with Sky Seal Stone or something like that. In Paldea Evolved, we are seeing that Gardevoir has access to Reversal Energy, which Reversal Energy is a special energy card. If you are behind on prizes, or you have more prizes left than your opponent, and you attach the energy to an evolution non-rulebox Pokemon, you get 3 Rainbow Energy. And so for Baby Gardevoir, Chilling Rain Gardevoir, that essentially means you get a bonus 90 damage for a single attachment. And that is a huge, huge deal because for Paul's side of the board, he's okay saying, you know what, Eli, stay a prize ahead of me the whole game. Because it means I get to enact my game plan in a more significant, weirdly enough, aggressive from behind kind of way.
Definitely. I think one of Gardevoir's biggest limitations in the Scarlet to Violet format is that if you just straight up use like the Gardevoir EX to put the maximum amount of energy that Gardevoir, the Shining Arcana Gardevoir could have on it, which is 6, it maxed out at 270 damage, which
Yes.
is just such an unfortunate number because it is 1 damage short of knocking out some of the biggest threats in the meta. But now with Reversal Energy, you put 5 energy on Gardevoir, so 1 less than before, plus the 60 that it has by default, plus the 90 from Reversal Energy, and that is what, 330 damage?
Yes. Which is enough to knock out any Pokemon in the game,
Yeah,
except for Skeledirge EX, but probably won't see that one that
we'll
often.
see, we'll see.
So, on that note, kind of getting back to the game here, poor Eli is just kind of stuck still. It looks like he still had his hand a path to the peak, and he is
No,
now.
Paul actually played Iono. And
Oh!
gave Eli a hand that I believe has a double turbo in it. I think Paul's still going through his turn, kind of figuring out what to do. Um, I don't know if he should have played that Iono and given Eli a
I
fresh hand.
would agree, especially with Eli draw passing. I don't know if you want to give him 6 new cards. For those watching, Iono is a new supporter out of Paldea Evolved. it says shuffle your hand, or both players shuffle their hands, put them on the bottom of the deck. After that, draw cards equal to the number of prizes you have remaining. So if you each have 6 prizes, you each draw 6 cards. But if you only have 1 prize remaining, you only draw 1 card. So it's that new card that is both consistency and disruption. And in this case, for Paul, it basically just kind of handed Eli 6 fresh cards.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, I understand that he was in a bit of an awkward position having just like a Curlia and a Gardevoir, but in reality, like if Path of the Peak is out and Eli has no way to bump it, and he has 2 cards in hand, he could draw 1 more card. I mean, the only way that those Gardevoir are getting stopped from just continuing to draw the next turn is if Eli's hand is somehow like double turbo Arceus switch boss, which wouldn't have been possible because we would have had 3 cards in hand. So
Right.
I really don't think Paul should have done the Iono here because now it just is giving an Eli a working hand while Paul, Eli is still not necessarily in the best position because that Klefki is still stuck in the active, and that Arceus isn't able to accelerate energy, but it is now an Arceus V-Star with enough energy to attack, which is not what it would have been before that Iono.
And it's a good point because Eli was 2 turns away from attacking before Paul played that Iono. Now, Eli is likely attacking on his next turn if he can find either an energy or a switch.
Correct.
But coming back to Paul's side, Eli was able to play a judge to try to settle Paul's hand down a little bit. But like you mentioned, Paul has a Curlia and a Shining Arcana Gardevoir on. I can never say that word, but Gardevoir on the field, which means he's getting net 4 cards every turn on top of any draw supporter or something like that. And it looks like he already used his Shining Arcana ability to put a couple cards in his hand and then search out, I believe, a Ralts with that level ball.
I don't. They're kind of laughing. I'm curious if there might be some Ralts prize because he just kind of
Maybe.
level balled potentially for nothing, unless I missed it.
No, I think you may be right. And that getting that Mew off the start makes a whole lot more
Yeah,
sense.
we'll see if he benches a Ralts
He,
here.
he did not get a
I
Ralts.
don't think he. I think he has 2 Ralts prize. This makes the game pretty interesting. Paul has to really hope that Eli does not boss knock out that Curlia. Um, because then Paul will never get a Gardevoir EX out.
Yes. And as much as you hate to cut your consistency this early, it may make sense to just get the Gardevoir EX down as soon as you can to protect that.
Yeah, you just kind of have to start that prize race going. At the same time, Eli does have that Path of the Peak out, and I don't know if Paul has a Stadium bump. He has the Radiant Greninja, he has Iono, so he could dig a little bit deeper. He has Professor's Research just to go even deeper, but
But to be honest, I don't even know if you would want to bump it right now.
yeah, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, I mean, hmm. This is very interesting. This is a very interesting position Paul is in. He could risk it and not evolve that Curlia and just kind of bank on being able to continue to draw and give Eli a bad hand. But I see Eli there with a boss's orders. All he needs is
Yes.
an energy, and if Paul doesn't evolve that Curlia, he might just be out of the game.
Ooh, and he does pass. And he had the Gardevoir EX in hand and decided not to use it. But
Yeah.
it looks like Eli has the boss, but he does not have a switching out yet
Yeah, he
or
has a
energy.
trekking shoes,
He
so
does. He
it
does have a
will
trekking
it
shoe.
really will come down to those trekking shoes. Can Eli draw into an energy and then just kind of break Paul's board right there? This is going to be very interesting.
Trekking shoes are kind of a tangent, but trekking shoes are such an interesting card to me. They harken back to Acrobike and some other cards from the past, but really it just means that you're playing with a 59, 58, 56 card deck if you include the trekking shoes. Since they don't explicitly give you anything, let you do anything, they just let you see the next card in line.
For sure.
And so it's always interesting for me where some decks you're willing to say, I'm only going to play my deck with 56 cards, and I'm willing to just
Oh,
take the hit.
Eli drew. That's a
There's a
switch.
switch. All right. Now, is he going to be able to? Now, is he going to boss up the Ralts or the Gardevoir?
You mean the guard of the Curlia?
Curlia,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
I mean, he's got yeah, it's got to be the
Yeah,
Curlia.
it's going to be
Yeah.
the Curlia.
Paul probably should have evolved that. That is
Yes.
unfortunate.
I think that is what he's saying to Eli right
Yeah.
now too.
Oh yeah.
Is I probably should have put that down.
Yes. Now, Paul is playing a deck, like you said, with reverse energy, with Iono. Eli's deck has essentially no draw engine. Like, this is a deck that could definitely, like, if you get a big knockout, it could definitely just be like Iono'd to an unplayable hand very easily.
Ooh, real quick, Rafal. Looks like Paul top decked the Super Rod.
Yes, I was about to say that is Paul's only real out. He needs to Super Rod himself a Ralts back onto the board, then try to maybe rare candy it or just maybe just slowly evolve it into a Gardevoir EX. But again, with Reversal Energy, with Shining Arcana, there's always a world where he goes down 3 prizes and then just gets 2 prize or knockouts. It is not impossible to come back from this situation.
And there is the Reversal Energy, also a lovely proxy.
For sure.
Good
Thank you.
job.
I appreciate it.
Which will let him do a good bit of damage. So then the question is, he could technically take 2 prizes here by gusting up, I believe, the Pikachu V on the bench. However,
Yes.
it doesn't look like he is an out to get another Ralts down on the board.
Yeah, doesn't seem like it. Yeah, with the reverse energy that Gardevoir is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 210 damage, which is a nice number, but then that Arceus will knock you out. So at a certain point, you do just need to kind of start trading, especially considering there's 2 Ralts in the prizes, as we realized a
Yes.
couple turns ago. So Paul can't really be in a situation where he's just like setting up a Ralts at a time. Eventually, they'll just like that chain is just going to get broken. One of them is going to get boss, and the game is going to be over.
Well, and Paul is kind of stuck here because I see multiple boss's orders and a worker in his hand. And boss will get him prizes. Worker will draw 3 cards, but worker will also open up Starbirth for Eli.
Yeah.
And Paul will take the
Oh,
knockout.
hopefully some Raltses.
I see 1 Ralts
See.
and a Manaphy.
Okay.
Well, one of those was helpful.
Yeah.
But like we're talking about going ahead, falling behind on prizes, Paul has time.
Paul is now up on prizes.
He is. He is up
Paul is
on
now up on
prizes
prizes,
too.
right? Like that reverse energy is putting in some work.
It is, but he also has time because Eli still needs to take 5 knockouts on Paul's board right now
Mm-hmm.
with 2 attackers set up, but then Paul only needs to take 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
For
he
sure.
essentially has 4 turns to take 2 knockouts.
Yeah, there is a world here where Paul is, he's going to end up having to promote that Mew, and as long as Eli doesn't have a boss in hand next turn, he can maybe bring out 2 Raltses and kind of start getting things going. Although
Yeah.
he's used 1 rare candy. I've seen him discard 1. I don't know if he really has the option to rare candy to a Gardevoir EX at any point to maybe set up like a Zacian play. We'll have to wait and see what Eli's hand is looking like next turn.
That's not a hand you want to see over there for Paul.
Yeah.
He's got a collapsed. He's got a research. He's got a couple Gardevoir pieces. And only draw 1, Paul.
Yep. He can now use the Mew though.
He can. Oh, he has a Greninja. All right. That could be very good. And actually, I don't mind him just dropping the collapsed and researching here.
Yeah. I could see that. I do think he'd rather maybe you want to research first and then go for the Mew play.
I would agree with the same thing. And it looks like he tried to look at the camera and didn't even look at that correctly. Sorry, Paul. It's not your round, bud.
It's a rough one.
It is. But no, I agree with you there. I think you're going to have to play the research. There's no way you don't. So put the collapse down. Give yourself just an out in order to play more. Or maybe even don't drop the collapse. But regardless, try to get yourself set up a little bit.
Yeah, I really like in terms of and this isn't necessarily like a slight against Paul because again he's kind of figuring out this deck as he goes along and he's been put in a very unfortunate situation by his prizing. But this kind of is going to go for any player learning to play Gardevoir this format. There's a lot of little sequencing things, right? Like if you're just thinking of well, what's the best way to just dig as deep as possible? You're going to want to research, then Greninja, then Mew. Inevitably just to see as many cards as possible in the deck. And those are just like the little decisions that come over time with practice with the deck. So, no shame on Paul for, just having some slight sequencing errors. That's, it'll come with practice.
Agreed. And it looks like Paul is, he found 1 Ralts. It looks like that's about it.
Yeah, and now that this collapsed is in play, Eli will be able to finally use his Starbirth.
And I gotta imagine he's just gonna boss up that Ralts right away. Bryce, our man-handling stream over here, is also nodding in a yes. That Ralts is very dead.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think without being able to get 2 Ralts out, I don't really know what the plan is here, unfortunately, for Paul.
I don't know if there's a great plan here, sadly. But it looks like it's moving on to Eli's turn. He does have a heavy ball. with I didn't actually see what was in there. What is the Radiant Pokemon the key deck plays? Does it play a Radiant?
I don't think it plays anything because most of them have abilities, and you're just pathing
I
or
guess that's
clef
fair.
keying
Or
everything.
Klefki, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, it looks like Eli plays Heavy Ball. He may just have Boss straight in his hand. If not, I gotta imagine he's gonna Starbirth for it. Okay.
Unless he's
Oh,
not retreating. Oh,
he
he's
is
just
not.
rearranging the card.
Yes. And we are gonna see the Starbirth. Oh, it's a lovely Shaman. And if I had
Fantastic.
to guess, he's gonna get a Boss. Yep.
Yes. Oh yeah, he
There's
is.
the Boss straight away. And then what else do you think you get here? Just another Boss or a Judge?
Um, that's an interesting question. I mean, you could get multiple bosses, although at this point, if there's only like one boss left in the deck, because I was gonna say like if you get two bosses, you could then get Iono to not really be able to find it again. But at the same time, oh, he's gonna get Path. I mean, just to slow down the Greninja, right? Um,
Oh, this
oh,
is interesting. How do you feel about this player, Rafal?
um, that is an interesting play. Just kind of going for the Zacian. Although I guess because the Zacian now has 180 damage on it, there's really no way for Paul to put um enough energy on it.
Agreed. I would agree with that. Um, my only thought here that is you could have completely removed his board
Yeah.
by just gusting up the Ralts, but now you're giving Paul some time to get back into it and maybe pull off something a little crazy.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know what Paul's like play would be here, but yeah, I do think it's a little interesting just to not go for a knockout. I mean, the Path of the Peak will make his life difficult nonetheless. He can't use his Greninja.
Absolutely.
He needs to find another stadium bump. Okay, I was gonna say I don't know if there's any rare candies left. He's gonna rare candy to Shining
It looks like
Arcana.
he doesn't have any other cards in his hand he can use to draw at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are going to see a Shining Arcana. No energy, and we see a Battle VIP and a Level Ball. All right, so we are going to get a second Ralts out. And what we're going to see, I think, is a hit into this Arceus with Sashin, and then likely a knockout of the Arceus with the Shining Arcana Gardevoir to follow that up.
Yes. Does Paul have a reversal energy in hand? I know his list does play two.
He does not at the moment, but I think if Paul's able to bounce the path and get the Guardy EX down on the
Mm-hmm.
second Ralts, he's now going to be in a position where he's going to take a knockout, and then he'll have a two prizer on the board, but it's a two prizer that is far out of the range of either Arceus from knocking it out.
For sure. I do think he's definitely out of
We do see an Iono here.
he is definitely out of rare candies at this point
Yes.
because he's discarded one and used two, and it's my list. I don't play I don't play
All right,
four,
fair enough,
so I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. He does not have any more rare candies.
But to your point then, so he only needs, though, a single attachment of a reversal energy to do 150 and take the knockout on the Arceus.
Yes,
However,
and Eli seems to know this.
he does. And putting in the clean Arceus in front, which I think is a great decision here because Paul's not really going to have a way to spread damage outside of, well, outside of Cresselia. But unfortunately, Cresselia would do a max of 120 and not knock out the Arceus on the bench.
And Cresselia also needs a Gardevoir EX to
Correct.
be available.
Also correct. All right, and Paul has seen the doom in his horizon. So one thing I think we'll see more throughout this day with Iono, but Iono's really going to favor decks that play from the board. So Eli, for instance, has no draw engine on the board, but his game is kind of self-sustaining. He will use one Arceus to set up his other attackers, so he will rarely need to draw cards except for a Gust or to see special energy, something like that. Paul has a similar approach with his deck where he's going to use his board of Kirlia, Shining Arcana, Gardevoir to say, I don't care if you Iono me to 3, because I'm going to see 6 or 7 more cards every turn anyway.
Definitely, and I think it just in terms of meta decks that I think do not do that. Cards that are not usually able to sustain themselves very effectively, and that I think Iono will be very strong against them, is things like Miraidon EX.
Yes.
Like that is a deck that will definitely struggle if they're not able to hit some like crazy generators, unless they kind of change the way they play the game and build their decks. That is not a deck that can really sustain itself through multiple Ionos.
Correct. Agreed. And I think another deck like that is unfortunately Baxcallbur with Chi and
For
Pao,
sure.
which is why I know a number of lists are playing like a 1/1 B-roll line or something similar.
Yeah, Bibarel or Palkia, just some way to get energy onto the board that isn't, your massive, needing 4 or 5 water energy in your hand,
Yes.
because that cannot always consistently be done. Which, we, like you were saying, these are two decks that are able to do that consistently. Whether you're Ionoing them, they can either draw out of a 1 card hand or continue to function with a 1 card hand, which is why
Right.
these are two archetypes, Arceus and Gardevoir, that are definitely going to be very successful in the following format.
So, question, how many Gus does your deck play? The Gardevoir deck. Is it one boss, one Serena, two boss, and a Pal Pad?
It is 2 boss and a Palpad.
Okay. So one out Paul could have here is to stall a little bit, but it looks like he's ultra balling away that boss. So that's, I guess, not the play. Eli does have the energy in hand, which will certainly help. But I think what Paul really needs to figure out here is how do I buy myself a turn or two so I can go in and take a knockout with something that can't be respawn KO'd. And I
Yeah,
don't know if there's a line at this
I
point.
I see a world where Mew gets knocked out, Paul evolves that Curlia to a Gardevoir EX, bosses the damaged Arceus, and then Eli is not able to boss around it. And then
Yes,
he maybe comes back with like a Super Rod, Zacian, or Gardevoir play to knock out the other Arceus. That is
that is the
probably,
line.
yeah, that is likely his only win condition. If Eli has any boss to just go after this Curlia, this game is over.
Correct. And it looks like Paul is down both boss. So Iono, though, can be very good for him because, like we mentioned, Eli set up his attackers from the board, but he does not have any engine to draw from the board. So he's only going to get 2 cards in his top deck, and that's it.
For sure. Yeah, this is going to be very interesting. If when one of those is the boss's orders, Eli will probably just kind of put himself into a checkmate
We do
position.
see another Ralts. We do have a switch card, so okay.
Yeah. But those are not cards that Eli wants to see. So maybe Paul might be able to pull out of this.
And that is an Arceus V-Star, which is equally unhelpful for Paul. Or excuse me, for
For Eli.
Eli.
Yeah,
Really, anything is unhelpful for Paul.
yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Eli just kind of has to knock out the Mew here. And Paul, he needs a certain combination of cards here. He needs a Stadium out. He probably needs a boss. Um,
Ooh, I don't know if I love that decision. Because I agree. I think he needs to go into the EX and he needs to find a boss. But it
yeah.
looks like he has Worker, and that's it right now.
Mm.
Okay, so that does get rid of the stadium, which is good. But with both boss and the discard too, he would have needed the Pal Pad to then Shining Arcana into it.
Yeah, I really don't. Yeah, like I don't think there's a way Paul wins here. It is a valiant effort
It
considering the
is.
circumstances of having 2 Ralts in the prizes, but
Absolutely.
I don't know if he'll be able to pull out of this.
I would tend to agree. But Paul, like you said, valiant effort. He's doing his best, seeing if there's something he can pull out here, but it is unlikely.
Maybe he's trying to deck out.
That's, go out on his own terms. I get it.
Exactly.
I can empathize. He's doing his best. Again, his one out may be to try to gust install after putting the EX up active, but unfortunately, Eli's got a whole lot more cards left in deck than he does,
Yeah.
and Eli has a switch.
Yeah, I was gonna say the switch just. Of course, Paul wouldn't
So,
know that, but yeah, the switch makes things a little difficult here. He looks at his last card. I think it's a Psychic Energy.
I
Puts it back
agree.
down.
And Paul will be able to attack, but he is
There we
indeed
go.
decking himself out.
He's
And he
gonna
just
pass. He's
passes.
gonna pass.
That is Eli pass back. Do the man a solid.
Come on, don't
Just pass.
don't get a knockout. Don't get a knockout. There we go.
All right, there we go.
GG.
Well, good win by Eli. Gardevoir, unfortunately, does not set up quite as aggressively as Paul was hoping for, and Paul, unfortunately, also gave Eli a new chance to play. So we're going to jump over into our second game here and check out what's happening with Reno and Christian Sr. So Reno did play and Christian did play in the Milwaukee Regionals this past weekend. Unfortunately, they did not have quite as good of a run, but
As
Christian,
you, as
well,
is the implication.
okay, that was not the implication. I
Okay,
recognizing now what I said. Yes. Uh, Christian did, I believe, go 5-2-2. He said, which is a very solid outcome.
Yeah, these are all. I mean, we're very fortunate in the Chicagoland area. We always love to sing its praises. Of having just some very talented players. There's always a lot of high level competition going on here.
Yes. And Reno, as possibly the single most self-deprecating human I've ever met in my life, also got top 16 at Indianapolis Regionals last year.
Could
So
you tell us the deck?
I would love to tell you that is with Arceus Corviknight
Oh
VMAX, the
yeah,
best deck the world has ever seen. Not because I had a hand in developing it.
of
Definitely
course,
not.
of course.
But coming back to here, it looks like we actually have a pretty even game right now. 4 prizes to 4, if I'm reading that correctly. Five. Oh, Reno, no. Reno has 5, it looks like, to Christian's 4. And so Reno is playing Arceus Giratina, though he seems to be skipping the Arceus portion of it at this time.
Yeah, I'm assuming the first one was probably knocked out.
Yes, that seems like a good assumption. And it looks like Christian is going into his Tyranitar. It's only doing 260. Oh, there's a single strike
No,
energy.
because he just attached a Jet
You're
Energy
right,
for
he
turn,
did.
which means he's stuck doing 260 to this
Yes,
Giratina.
which is not quite what he's looking for.
Yeah.
So obviously coming in a little blind, not sure if he's used both of his primal turbos or if he's used a supporter, but it does look like he's going to hit into the Giratina. And interesting that he uses single strike crush rather than just Cragalanche.
Yeah, that he loses a double turbo energy, which always just kind of sucks.
Yes.
Never like to lose that.
Yes.
Reno, now I don't know exactly what his hand is. I mean, just based off the board state, I do see that he could knock out this Tyranitar, the next turn attach an energy to that bench Giratina and knock out, that bench Lugia V with a boss and win the game.
Yes.
I don't
He
know.
does
He
have
does have the
the
energy.
V-Star. All
Yeah.
right.
So, we are just kind of hopping into this game, but it does look like, just by the fact that Christian Sr. was not able to knock out that Giratina, Reno is in a pretty good spot. He's researching here. All he really needs to kind of be in a checkmate position next turn is a boss and an energy.
So this is one interesting thing, and he obviously knows what's in his deck in his hand or not. But I feel like when you need some kind of self-sustaining attackers, Arceus may be. Oh, and you know what? He has a choice belt. He's going to be okay. But typically, you would want to use Arceus as that attacker since you don't have to loss zone energy in order to hit. But in this case, if he has an energy to attach, it could be a double turbo energy and still take a knockout and a V star. And there's the path to the peak, which limits Christian's ability to use Luminion to try to gust or anything.
Well, you see, Dan, Reno also has the new Spiritomb
Ah,
card,
he
which
does.
also turns off the abilities of all basic Vs, which just kind of gives Lugia some double trouble.
It
They got
does. It
even if they
does.
bump the path to use their Lugia, they still cannot use Luminion. And this is a card that's gonna, honestly, I think the popularity of the Spiritomb is gonna be very interesting to watch come NAIC.
It's
And
the Decidueye curve, man.
yeah,
It's going to be the
will
Decidueye
will
curve.
will will we be at a point in online tournaments where no one's playing the Spiritomb and Mew will just kind of dominate, or will everyone be playing Spiritomb and Mew does terrible? I
Yep.
think that's a very interesting question to start asking ourselves as we move forward to NAIC.
And so when I say the Decidueye curve, oh, and I see Christian looking at his deck with an unhappy expression. I
Yeah.
think he's looking for a reversal energy, if I had to
I
guess.
do see one. He'd probably rather put it on that Lux Ray,
Okay, so he's using both primal turbos. Interesting.
but that might be all the energy in his deck. We
It
did see
looks
him
like
single strike crush away a double turbo energy.
he did.
So if he retreats to this Lux Ray, it will get a knockout, and unless he does get something crazy off the prizes, he might just kind of be out of energy.
He does have a single strike urn in hand, but I don't know if he has attackers to go with it. So it does look like he will be able to take the knockout here, which is excellent. And
Yeah.
then, does Reno have 2 prizes remaining? 2 prizes
Reno has
remaining.
2, so all he needs is a boss and energy to win the game. Dan, could you tell us a bit about this Lux Ray that Christian's about to use?
I would love to Rafal. So this Luxray is a stage 2 Pokemon, 150 HP. Its attack for 2 lightning and a colorless does 180 damage, and you take 20 damage yourself. But the real interesting part of the card is that it has an ability, and the ability says that if you have more prizes remaining than your opponent, you can put this Pokemon into play from your hand as if it were a basic Pokemon.
Ooh, and there's the game.
There is the boss, and Reno takes it down. Nice job, Reno, representing Nerd Rage Gaming well as just a great team member there. Good job, Reno. Well, no, to finish up here for that Luxray, the reason that card is so exciting is obviously some very key Pokemon in the format, Lugia, Flying Pikachu that are weak to lightning, but also it is just another indication that Pokemon is printing cards set to enable comebacks
For
and
sure.
to allow special effects if you are behind. So we'll go ahead and skip over to our ad here real quick as we let everyone get set to the next round. And obviously, we're here at Nerd Rage Locals talking about Pokemon. We would love to buy your Pokemon cards, and we would love you to buy our Pokemon cards. And you know what? You can even trade us Pokemon cards if you really want. Nerd Rage Gaming does have the new Paldea Evolve set in stock and ready for people to come in and buy. And we would always want you to bring in your EXs, GXs, Vs, anything that you want to get off your hands, because we would love to give you some credit, give you some cash, and let you go get the next set and get the next set of cards you need. So we'll go ahead and take a minute here and then jump back into the next round in just a bit. Welcome back, everybody. We are about to get started here in our next round at Nerd Rage Gaming. We have on the left Olive playing on the right Ryan, and boy, oh boy, do we have a match for you. Rafal, can you tell us what the people are playing?
Oh yeah. So Olive on the left is playing Gardevoir with a whole bunch of other stuff. It is the Reversal Energy Mewtwo V-Union Gardevoir deck that is based around kind of playing from behind, setting up these very long-term plays. The deck really only plays 6 Psychic Energy. And then you have 4 Reversal Energy, which buffs up all of your really powerful Stage 2 attackers, such as your Shining Arcana Gardevoir, which we saw last game used by Paul, such as your Gallade Buddy Catch, which is a Psychic-type Gallade that lets you search for a support every turn, such as your Fighting-type Gallade that does more damage for every V your opponent has in play, and the Luxray we saw last game that Christian Sr. was playing that can be benched straight out of your hand if you're down in prizes, and then does, 180 damage?
Yes, 180 damage to 20 yourself, but you only have 150 HP. You're probably getting knocked out
Yeah.
anyway.
And while Olive is going to be doing that and slowly kind of setting up her entire board, getting all of these Ralts, evolved into Gardevoirs, into Gallades, into all these various evolution lines, she will also be slowly discarding Mewtwo V-Union pieces as kind of a late game finisher. So even, it's going to be a bit different against Ryan's Lost Box deck where most of these attackers are getting one-shot attacks off. Against certain decks like Arceus decks where you're probably not one-shotting these Arceuses, you're spreading damage all over the board. And then late game, this Mewtwo V-Union comes out, you Iono them to 1, you play 16 damage counters, and you say, good luck, I'm going to do 300 damage next turn. You got 1 turn to win the game.
Yep. Exactly. And you can see Olive's, though, reaction there to what Ryan is playing, as Ryan benches what is my favorite deck going into the format, Grass Kitty, also known as Meowscarada. And so Ryan is playing a very interesting build with that, where he's using the Lost Zone engine, Comfies, Chorus, all of that, along with a smaller, is it either a 2-2 or a 3-3 line of the Meowscarada EX? And
I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. I
was
really
gonna
don't
say,
know.
and Rafal, can you tell the people what Meowscarada EX does and why I'm so excited about it?
I'm going to be completely honest, Dan. I'm going to leave this to you because
All right,
I vaguely know what it does, but I might need a reminder because I will probably get something wrong.
I am so excited about it. So I was lucky to play in this in a tournament in Japan, which was so much fun. But Meowscarada EX is a Stage 2 Pokemon, 310 health, Grass type, surprisingly enough. And it has an ability that says once during your turn, you can discard a Grass energy from your hand and place 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And then the attack is not bad. For 2 colorless, you do 100, and if your opponent has any damage counters on it, you do 220 instead. So the 220 is less exciting going into this matchup. The spread damage, however, is very exciting because Gardevoir, as you mentioned, Rafal, only plays 6 Psychic Energy, 4 Reversal Energy. And Reversal Energy only is activated if you're behind on prizes. And so for Ryan's side, Ryan doesn't need to take a prize lead to start knocking stuff off. What Ryan can do is start continually pinging damage everywhere and then using Sableye or using other pings to clean up damage and knock out a big chunk of Olive's engine before ever going behind on prizes until there's a big sweep. Which at that point, Olive has less capability to actually respond because Olive won't have 3 Curlia, a Shining Arcana Gardevoir, or anything else on the board.
Yeah, this is very interesting because, like I mentioned earlier, Olive's deck is based on doing like maybe 150 to 200 damage at a time and then cleaning up with the Mewtwo V Union. But that's just overkill. That's, you know, the only thing that's not going to knock out in Ryan's deck is the Meowscarada when he feels like rare candying into it. So every attack that Olive does, other than this, you know, 1 damage memory skip, turning off Comfy's attack, whose name I don't even know, is going to be getting knockouts and slowly giving Olive prizes. While Ryan is able to just kind of slowly spread damage with Sableye. So yeah, it's going to be kind of an interesting little dance here. I wonder if Olive, in that case, just kind of is going to be rushing towards setting up that Mewtwo V Union. Do you think that might be the call here?
It may be. The other risk too is although Ryan isn't pinging a ton, Meowscarada does still do 220 base, or 220 if the opponent has any damage counters on it. And in order to accelerate energy onto the Mewtwo V Union, Olive's going to have to put at least 40 damage on there. So for Ryan, uh, there's not a huge probability, but there is a chance that he could just straight up knock out the Mewtwo V Union once it hits the board.
So here's the thing, Dan. There is actually an interesting play you can do this with this Mewtwo V Union deck where you essentially draw until you have no cards left in your deck. You Super Rod 3 energy into your deck, Shining Arcana all the energy onto Mewtwo, then Iono your hand into your deck.
Ah,
So then you still
okay.
have a deck left, you don't deck yourself out, but the Mewtwo is able to get 3 energy on it without taking any
Interesting.
damage.
Okay,
But
okay.
that is a late game scenario that I don't know how Olive is going to get to that.
And it looks like Ryan is starting to take prizes here, but I also don't mind that. Olive knows that she can't put up the mana fee to get knocked out by the Cramorant because Ryan could just snipe with Radiant Greninja the next turn. So Ryan's going to be able to slowly piece apart that Gardevoir, that Ralts engine that Olive's trying to put together. And all the cool versatile energy plays and everything don't matter if you don't have attackers to use them with.
Exactly. You know, as much as we're talking about kind of these cute plays that either player can do, Ryan, as a Lost Box player, is not going to say no to a Cramorant using Spin and instantly knocking out Ralts.
Absolutely. And as far as Olive getting her game like advanced, if she doesn't have the engine, it's going to be really, really hard for her to do that.
Yeah, fortunately for all of it, you know, like we've been saying, this is a deck that is meant to play from behind. So it's just very interesting. You know, this Olive is playing a deck that could look like it's just losing, and then suddenly it's not. You know,
That is true.
so it'll really just kind of have to come down to. I think part of it is going to come down to just how fast Olive can kind of churn through her deck. This version of the deck, at least in my experience, doesn't actually play. Oh, and there
Oh,
is the
wait,
Luxray.
hold on. Corellia has 2 retreat cost, so we may need to
Oh,
wait. Bryce, would you mind kindly yelling at them?
we might need. We
We
might have
gotta
a
we gotta come back
minor
from that one
little
a little
issue
bit.
here.
Yeah, that's unfortunately illegal. It does.
Yeah,
It
we have
does.
caught it.
I don't know if you
Curly,
can hear Olive in the background saying, "Does it?" It does, Olive.
yeah, Curly is
Unfortunately,
surprisingly heavy for a
yes,
little Battle Arena Pokemon. It has 2 retreat, which is not something you'd expect,
that is
but
not.
it does, and it does matter.
And we see Olive coming to grips with the consequences of her actions right now, unfortunately, in just saying, "Oh no, I had the plan. I had the plan laid out, and yet."
Yeah, and you know, for anyone who's like freaking out here, it is locals. Both players know each other, respect each other. We know, you know, Olive's not going to try to trick us and tell us she took the wrong
Oh
prize. We're
yeah,
all good here. You know, no
no,
penalties are going to be
absolutely not.
given. We're just kind of testing how these new decks work. People will be making mistakes. We're being pretty lax with it. And Ryan's just kind of spinning this thing.
Yeah.
His hand doesn't seem to be good, but he's taking prizes. Can't complain about that, right?
And you do have to feel for Olive there. Like, clearly trying to set up a play. And to be honest, it would have been an excellent play because Ryan would have been tied on prizes, but would have had to respond. And then probably doesn't have a great response for Luxray itself.
Yeah, because it has what 150 HP, takes 20 damage, and
So it goes
Cramorant
down
does
to
110,
130.
130, and Cramorant doesn't do enough.
Exactly. So then if Ryan wanted to take prizes, it would have to be on some of the bench, in which case Luxray is there ready to hit yet again. And so on Ryan's side, he hasn't actually gotten Meowscarada set up or anything. Olive not knocking out the Cramorant had a bit of a side consequence of Ryan wasn't able to get into any comfies. I don't think Ryan's complaining. He's able to knock out another Curlia,
He'll
but
be all right. I think
yeah,
he'll be okay.
it's just fine. So on Olive's side, though, Olive does have 2 Curlia still to draw, which is great. So the engine is working, the engine is moving. Ah, and there was a Mirage Step Curlia, just in case.
Yeah, this deck plays because you play multiple Shining Arcana and then two at least one Gardevoir EX and then multiple Gallades. You actually kind of want to rely on the Mirage Steps sometimes, just having a bunch of Curlia that are independently benched and then using all your Ralts to rare candy into all these various chaining evolution line attackers. So it
Absolutely.
allows you to have a board that's essentially just like 6 different Pokemon that all evolve from Ralts.
And just as a reminder, the Mirage Step Ralts has the attack Mirage Step, surprisingly enough, that says search your deck for up to 3 Curlia and put them on your bench. So the reason why this is helpful is because you can put 2 Ralts on your bench, have a Ralts in the active that you evolve into Curlia, and then have Curlia put 3 Curlia straight on your board. So essentially, you have a board of 6 Pokemon all in the Gardevoir evolution line. So it looks like, going back to the game, Olive does take the knockout with Luxray, and Olive is actually tied on prizes, or excuse me, still behind a prize right now from Ryan. So if Ryan doesn't knock out this Luxray, Olive's going to be able to take a knockout right back with it. And we'll see what Ryan's trying to do here. Going for the Nest Ball. So while Ryan's searching that, you had mentioned a couple times before that Mewtwo V Union can come in and spread 16 damage counters to close the game.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the downside for Ryan by having a bunch of low HP attackers on his board. Mewtwo V Union can all but guaranteed take 2 prizes and have 270 HP remaining. So unless Ryan's able to do something kind of tricky, Mewtwo V Union could get 2 spread attacks to just close out the game if Olive is close enough in prizes.
For sure. And we do see Olive did play it down a little bit early just because of the circumstances of where the game was at, but Olive's deck also does play a Path to the Peak. So hypothetically, you can Iono your opponent to 1, Path to the Peak them, turn off the Greninja, use, was it Psysplosion from
Yes.
Mewtwo V Union, knock out 2 Comfies, and then your opponent's like, they got, what are they going to do? And if they
Right.
don't get a knockout there, and Mewtwo's going to use Final Burn to do 300 damage, like nuke that Meowscarada if it ever gets evolved.
Is that a Clara?
I think that's a fancy Raihan.
Is that a fancy Raihan?
I think he's
That
probably
is
going
a
to get.
fancy Raihan, I
Yeah.
believe.
So I don't know if he's going to try to maybe get like a rare candy for Meowscarada.
So
The Meowscarada's ability is turned off by Path.
he actually did draw into a rare candy off the most recent flower selecting. So he may be getting a stadium to start using Meowscarada. Which I would love just to see Baxcallbur hit the board and start doing some interesting stuff because I personally love the card. Now, here's a question. Does Ryan play Medicham V in his list? And normally you would say, well, you don't play Double Turbo or Rapid Strike Energy, but Ryan would be able to Mirage Gate to the Medicham V in order to Yoga Loop. So
That's true.
I'm very curious to see what Ryan actually pulls off of this.
Yeah, I know the build of the deck that you played that did not use the Lasso engine did play that, and because of that, you used Double Turbo Energy to attack with the Meowscarada.
Yes.
I feel like, honestly, thinking about just like how a Lasso deck functions, I don't really think you need your Medicham V. Your quote unquote Medicham V is just like your Sableye cleaning up
True.
and taking 3
Very
prizes at
true.
once. So that's kind of your multi-prize strategy there.
Yeah, very true. Oh, and there is the Meowscarada coming down. Let's see if it is a proxy or Japanese, or if Olive reads Japanese.
Maybe she does.
I think Ryan may be explaining exactly what it does. Yep. Excellent. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
Good.
Is it a
And we
real
see a
card, or does
rogue.
Ryan have a color printer?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So fancy. We give exciting lives here. And actually going into the comfy. We'll see. We got a Manaphy, which that's a quick one to go. Since unfortunately it does not stop Psysplosion.
Yeah,
We do see a beach
There we
court. All right.
and it does look like one of the cards in Ryan's Lost Zone is his V-Star counter. I think he's at 8 in the Lost Zone right now, so he's pretty close to starting to spread some damage with Sableye and doing some real damage.
He is. And actually, he didn't even use the Meowscarada ability there, but he did take a knockout since the attack does 100 damage base plus 120 more, and Curlia only has 80 HP. So Ryan now has gone down to 3 prizes. It looks like Olive is at 5. So Olive's got to be starting to figure out, how am I going to take this game? Because I haven't actually seen any Mewtwo V Union pieces come down yet. Have you?
Yeah, I don't really know if I have either. I don't know if there is really time for Olive to play something like a Peonia to double check the prizes and get any
True.
Mewtwo's out of there. There is a world here where Olive is able to, get a knockout with the Lux, not a knockout, but do some damage with the Luxray. Next turn, get a knockout with a Gallade or a Gardevoir using another reversal energy, and then Brian's at gonna be at 1 or 2 prizes. Olive's gonna be at 3, and that is hypothetically enough to kind of do like this whole big Mewtwo V Union Iono Psysplosion play.
Yes.
Assuming Olive can get it out. And I don't know if Olive is churning through her deck fast enough to get that working.
I would agree. And I see the Ultra Ball in hand, and it looks like Olive's discarding a Peonia, actually.
Okay,
So,
so we must hopefully we've deck checked and hopefully we do have all the
yeah.
Mewtwo V Union pieces.
And so I'm kind of curious about that. With Ultra Ball in hand, I can't quite see what all the other pieces are, but I wonder if Olive would have been better suited finding a Mewtwo V Union piece and then discarding it with Curlia.
That is possible.
Oh, we
Ooh,
do
that
see
is
a
a
rescue
rescue
carrier.
carrier.
Ah, okay. So we'll be able to get another Ralts down. The engine is kind of getting back to it, which is good.
Yeah, Olive, I mean, I can't really tell how much Olive has in her deck, but that hand is what, like 15 cards?
It's pretty beefy.
Yeah, so
It's a lost zone hand.
there's probably not a ton of cards left in that deck. But again, we haven't really been able to keep track of the Mewtwo V Union pieces. That's kind of the big question here.
Yes. And so for Ryan, he's got to be thinking I have 3 prizes left. Likely he's going to be able to hit with Meowscarada to take a knockout here. Okay. Can't use the search,
Yeah, that
Olive,
is
because okay. Interesting. We're going to see the knockout on the Sableye. And it's interesting that Olive put down the Artisan Stadium rather than, especially when opening up a bench slot for Ryan. So just for background, Artisan, village, town, whatever it may be, small, local with buildings. The stadium says each player, once during their turn, may search their deck for a basic Pokemon without a rule box and put it onto their bench. So basically, it's a nest ball for non-rule
little
box
baby
Pokemon.
nest ball both players can play.
Yeah,
Just a nice little setup consistency card that is not Mesagoza.
exactly, which is not a coin flip.
Yes.
And for these kinds of decks where they're building from basic non-EX, non-V Pokemon, it is ideal. And that was a great Colress for Ryan. Whoo, buddy. We got an energy retrieval, a grass energy, a rare candy, and you don't even need the rare candy.
Yeah. So what I think, I think the reason that Olive might have gone after that Sableye is because there is a possibility that, Ryan was at 8, now he's at 10, right? There's a possibility that here that Ryan uses Meowscarada's ability, does 30 damage to that Ralts, and then Sableye can knock out Curlia and Ralts and just go way too fast and essentially win the
Very
game.
true.
I think Olive might have been seeing that win condition. I don't know if Ryan has a way to get another Sableye. He there's the
does play the
Metachamp.
Metachamp
There's the
V. All
Metachamp.
right.
Cool. Maybe he might be ultra balling for another Meowscarada, maybe looking to use the ability
I would actually guess the
twice.
Sable. Oh, we are going to get the Meowscarada, so maybe he had
So
another candy in hand.
yeah,
And
either
thank you, Ryan, for getting the real one. I appreciate that.
there we go. Yes, I don't know if Sableye is just in the deck, he's gonna Artisan for it. I don't know if it's already in hand. Maybe, Olive noticed that Ryan only had one available to him. Maybe he lost. I don't think he. Oh no, it looks like there's some psychic types in the lost. I don't know if those are Comfies
I
or
believe they're both
Sableyes.
Comfies.
Okay.
Yes. And so Ryan, though, looks like he had the rare candy in hand. Excellent. So he has access to multiple grass energy right now to try to make some things happen. And there was
There's the
another
Sableye.
save. Oh,
Yeah, this is
oh
gonna be
dear.
tough. This is gonna be tough.
Oh dear. Can Ryan win this turn? I don't think so, but I think he will be able to knock out the Curlia and the Ralts.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
you would need a third one to do enough damage to knock out like Curlia, Ralts, Manaphy.
Yes.
But nonetheless, this is gonna probably put
This is
Olive in an
catastrophic.
almost unwinnable board position here.
Interesting. So I guess there's still enough for Ryan to knock out both Curlia and Ralts with Sableye. So
Yeah, this is actually I think this is actually correct here because this means that Ryan can even if Sableye gets knocked out, if Ryan's able to do 2 Meowscarada abilities, that Manaphy gets knocked out and he wins the game.
yes, good call.
So this
And I
is setting
think
himself up for the long term.
you would put residual damage from
Of
the
course.
spread on Manaphy anyway. So just went through it about a different way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, the damage is going to the same place as it would have ended up in the end.
So then the thing Olive has to be careful. Actually, Olive's just got to be feeling bad right now. Olive's just got to hope that they can Iono Ryan to 1 and Ryan whiffs energy or Mirage Gate or anything else because he is just one attack away from winning the game here.
Yeah, we do see Olive with at least 2 Ultra Balls, maybe 3, might be able to just burn through the deck and get that Mewtwo out.
So I assume Olive is playing the Mewtwo, but I haven't seen any pieces for it. Have you?
I guess I haven't. Maybe it really is just like a reversal variant. Typically, I do see it with Mewtwo.
Bryce has better eyes than either of us, and he is also shaking his head over here, so I feel confident.
Yeah, maybe we're wrong. Maybe those 4 remaining prizes are all Mewtwo V Union. Maybe that's why Olive
That
discarded
is-
Peonia, right?
and that's why Olive didn't Peonia. He
Yeah,
wouldn't be able to get
because
4
there's
with
no point,
it.
right?
Well, that is an option, I
Yeah, we'll
guess.
definitely have to ask after this game.
So and here's where it's tough now too, because you can't hit with Luxray here. Because Luxray guarantee gets knocked out by everything.
Yeah.
You almost have to go into Shining Arcana Gardevoir and hit with that. Eventually I'll learn how to say that word. And so it looks like there is a reversal energy in hand. So Olive hopefully will be able to. Well, there's an Ultra Ball. Oh, there's a Mewtwo
There
V
they
Union
are.
piece.
Okay, I
All
guess we
right.
just have not we just haven't drawn into them.
Nope. It's all hanging out in the deck. I am kind of curious though that with those Ultra Balls in hand, it doesn't seem like Olive's made intentional effort to get those in the discard.
Yeah, well, especially now that Olive has bench locked herself, she's not really. Looks like we're just not going for that play anymore. I think we really just have to go for the Iono and
And hope.
I don't know, and hope that Shining Arcana Gardevoir with a ton of
We actually just go for the knockout here.
interesting.
Was there no draw supporter in hand?
Yeah, there might have been no Iono to play. I do know that this version of the deck, because it wants to draw so much, doesn't play as much Iono as the normal version of Gardy. It plays a lot of
Interesting.
research to keep
Okay.
drawing. So if Ryan has a Mirage Gate and 2 energy, then
Or Mirage
Meowscarada will
gain
get the
1 energy and
knockout.
attachment, or
Yeah,
just
there's a lot of ways that Ryan could win here.
yes.
I mean, it's always possible that he's just kind of burned out of resources. We did see him lost zone in energy retrieval. Um,
And he did play an energy retrieval.
yeah, it's not impossible that he might be stuck for a turn.
Well, the other thing too is if he has a Clara or a Super Rod or something like that, Cram also wins the game.
Correct. Yeah, cram, retreat. Would just win the game.
And that's also why I'm curious why and there's an energy. Do we have a switching out? Oh, it doesn't matter. We have 2 grass energy for the knockout.
There we go. Knocks out the mana.
That was a very interesting game. I personally find so much joy in Meowscarada taking a win here. Unfortunately, Olive was not able to get out the Mewtwo V Union, and her board was just kind of trashed by Ryan putting too much pressure on the engine.
Yeah, there's all the Mewtwo
Ooh,
V Unions. The bottom like
yes.
8 cards of the deck are all
Oh,
the
man.
pieces.
Well, it was a good showing by Olive, and Ryan demonstrated that Lost Zone Kitty apparently can work pretty well. So, very excited that that could be a thing. But let's go ahead and jump over to our second game, and it's going to be a recap. There won't be a second game. There
Never
will
mind.
not be a second game. That was a very long game one, so that's understandable. Well, we'll just jump over real quick to advertisement before we get out of here. So, Nerd Rage Gaming is on Discord, as is pretty much everyone. And we would love to get you over there as a part of the community. We have Pokemon, Magic, Digimon, everything else you could be looking for here at the store. And I know we haven't noted it yet, but we do have a League Cup for Pokemon coming up at the end of June. So June 25th. It's the 25th, right? Yeah, it's the 25th. June 25th. Here
Correct.
at Nerd Rage
Correct,
Gaming, we will
A
have
Sunday.
a Sunday. We will have a League Cup. It is a double cup weekend with another cup in Chicago. And if we have anything to say about it, we will be streaming it. And this will be the last cup and the last chance to really get some competitive reps in before NAIC the next weekend. So we'll mention it a couple more times before the end of the day. But we would love to have you here, get to play against some of the best in the world that are coming in. It's going to be a great day. So we'll let everyone take a quick break, and we'll be back here with the next round momentarily. Welcome back, everybody, to Nerd Rage Gaming, our third round today. We have for you, I'm going to be very biased again on which deck I'm rooting for here. We have Arceus Keys versus Turbo Darkrai, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I am pumped. Rafal, give us a hint. What is Turbo Darkrai trying to do?
Turbo Darkrai is trying to get as much dark energy on the board and do big numbers of damage with Darkrai V-Star.
Well, there you go. That's it, folks. That's the deck. That's
There we
exactly
go.
what it does.
Doesn't get any more complicated than that.
It does. Well, it gets a little more complicated.
Yeah, so let's talk
how
about
exactly
the details.
do they go about doing
For
that?
sure. So one of the cool things that the deck gets to do is play the one and only Dark Patch. For anyone who's a veteran of the game, you might know Dark Patch. For anyone who's played it in the last year, you might know Metal Saucer, which lets you attach a basic energy. Then it was metal, now it was dark, from your discard onto one of your bench dark Pokemon. That is a very cool card because it means you can be very liberal with your discards. You can just kind of discard all your dark energy. I don't care about discarding my energy because I have 4 cards that let me get it right back onto my board. Oh wait, there's more. Darkrai lets you get 2 items from your discard back into your hand with its V-Star ability. So you
Yes,
can play up to 6 Dark Patches, which is pretty freaking cool.
that is. And there's a couple other Pokemon that help out too. Like Rafal said, you want to just throw your Dark Energy in the discard pile willy-nilly. But the other part that's interesting is there is a Moltres V, Galarian Moltres V, that has an ability that once during your turn, if you have any energy, dark energy in your discard pile, you can attach it to this Pokemon. So in one turn with a Moltres down, you can just keep adding energy turn after turn and building that damage. It looks like though, unfortunately, Michael just had to Serena away 2 Dark Patch from his opening hand,
Hey,
which does
they'll be
not
back.
feel
They'll be
good.
back next turn, you know.
They will hopefully. But also, funny enough, you see Eli put down the Aerodactyl V. Well, you would think Dark type, weak to fighting. Actually, Darkrai V-Star is weak to grass.
Yeah, they in the Scarlet and Violet era of the game, they kind of changed certain weaknesses that you might be very familiar with. Dark type, Pokemon that are Dark type in the card game represent Dark types from the video game and Poison types from the video game. If you are a Poison type in the video game, you will be weak to fighting in the card game because Poison's weak to ground.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you are a dark type in the game and a dark type in the card game, you will be weak to grass because dark types in the game are weak to bug types, which seems a little odd because we are used to all dark types being weak to fighting, but now it is only dark types based off of poison types in the game, which, to kind of round this all out, Darkrai has historically been weak to fighting,
Yes.
and it is now weak to grass, which is a little bit weird.
And it looks like Eli's going to be using the Aerodactyl V-Star attack, which is interesting. So when Aerodactyl uses its V-Star, it gains an ability that says your opponent's Pokemon V no longer have abilities while this Aerodactyl V-Star is in play. So that's kind of a big deal. Because remember the thing we talked about where we have Darkrai's V-Star ability, we have Moltres V ability. All of those are abilities on V Pokemon.
Yeah, this puts Michael in a bit of a weird position. There's essentially like despite that Path of the Peak being on board, if he somehow bumps it and gets to use his Pokestops, which lets him just churn through the top of his deck, it doesn't matter. That Aerodactyl is a Path to the Peak until it's knocked out and it has a V-Guard energy, so it effectively has 300 HP.
Yes. 290. So
Is it
Aerodactyl
260?
V-Star has 260
Okay.
HP,
Gotcha.
which it doesn't really matter when it comes to math with Darkrai V-Star since it's all in increments of 30. But if you're hitting with a Moltres V, something like that, then that is another Dark Patch being discarded
Oof.
by an Ultra Ball by Michael, and that
Yeah.
is not what he is hoping for there.
Yeah, he is going to need a couple manual attachments here in order to get this board going. I don't really know what he's going to do here because, yeah, the Moltres cannot use its ability. He has the baby Moltres in the discard, which, for anyone who's kind of used to that card from a few sets back as a counter to Mewtwo, it's the Moltres that when you bench it, you can attach 2 Dark Energy straight from your hand onto it. But, Michael thought it was weak to fighting.
As did everyone.
Yeah.
And it
That's
looks
a lot of
like
double
Eli
turbos.
did Lost Zone 2 double turbo energy. Oof. That's not the dream there. All right, so Michael looks like he got to do nothing last turn, which with the boss's orders in hand, I'm a little confused there of why not boss up the oh boy.
Okay, those all get discarded. And Moltres cannot get them back. Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. Like,
why not boss up the Arceus V-Star?
yeah,
See, there you go.
There
Okay.
we go.
So
Yeah.
we're a turn behind the plan, but the plan is still there.
He might have been banking on Eli just not having the fighting energy to attack with the Aerodactyl, but he did.
He did.
Which now puts him in a bit of an awkward position because he has this incredibly damaged Darkrai. But hey, if Eli doesn't find the switch out, who cares that it's damaged, right?
Eli did find the switch out.
Eli
just to clarify for the crowd.
Eli actually found the switch out.
It.
This is tough. This is very tough for Michael.
It is, and he does get the attachment down the Arceus, which is running low on double turbos though.
Yeah, he if he gets bossed again, well, he will only need 1 energy to knock out the to get the Arceus out of the active then. But
yes,
yeah, this is an awkward position. Michael seems to have a 1-card hand. Another boss.
All right.
This game might be ending very quickly.
Oh, and we do have the other attachment.
All right.
For the switch and the retreat. Go into the Darkrai V-Star. And for those watching at home, if you're ever wondering, well, why don't I play Darkrai V-Star? I hope this game shows you. I love this deck.
Hey,
I
there's
want this
another
deck
double
to be good.
turbo. Maybe he top techs a boss.
There
Maybe the
is.
Arceus is stuck. And a
Oh, I got a
research.
research. All right, we are gaming, folks.
Yeah, I don't know what that research can really do. You'd have to like switch out the Moltres and feed him a one prizer.
Well, I think he actually needs to try to go into Baby Moltres if he has the second one with the Dark Energy.
Yeah.
If you get the Baby Moltres and a switch out, you are pretty close to knocking out. Oh, we did
Yeah,
not.
Dan, he does not in
We did
fact
not
have the
get it.
Moltres with the switch out.
No. All right. Well,
That is tough.
That
That's
was a
tough.
rough one for Darkrai V-Star, unfortunately. And he had prized his 4th Dark Patch anyway.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, we'll move on from that massacre. Please watch with your own concerns. And we're going to go on to the second game here, which is at least slightly more even. Maybe both people have taken prizes.
Yeah, it seems like
Who
Eli
knows?
already has the key to the meta.
So Rafal will not be back next week, in
Sorry.
case anyone was curious.
I'll just be playing at the
That's
bottom
okay. I
tables.
enjoyed that. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Here we have Nick and Ben. Ben playing a new variant of Lugia. Can you tell us
Yes,
a bit
indeed.
about that, Dan?
Absolutely. So colorless Lugia as it is. So currently Lugia, the typical version, has single strike energy as the main interesting part with Tyranitar V and the like. That is a reversal energy going on the word here. Sure, sure. So colorless Lugia actually ignores the whole single strike package and instead includes jet energy, regeneration energy, therapy energy, all the other kinds that provide just colorless. So the main attackers are going to be Lugia V-Star, but then they're also going to be Snorlax, the baby Snorlax from Lost Origin that does 180 damage for 3 energy and falls asleep when you attack. However, one of the energy cards included in the new set is called Therapy Energy. Therapy Energy prevents you from being affected by any status conditions. So, Snorlax doesn't actually fall asleep, which may seem like not that big of a deal, but Snorlax is a basic with 150 HP, so into matchups like Lost Box here, it can be a huge struggle for them to get over.
Yeah, and the big issue with Snorlax isn't just that it falls asleep. When it falls asleep, its ability requires it to, or the effect of the attack requires it to flip 2 coins to wake up.
Yes.
So it is possible for that Snorlax to just kind of get stuck. However, Therapy Energy just lets Snorlax kind of ignore that. We will see Ben starting to set up his board. We do see that Weirdeer on the bench. It is a little odd that he attached that Reversal Energy because Weirdeer is a V. That Reversal will only cost for 1 colorless. But Weirdeer V has a very cool ability. If anyone's familiar with Heatran GX's Burning Road, Legendary Ascent from like 15 years ago. Essentially, when Weirdeer V moves from the bench to the active, it's able to kind of suck up all the energy on the board onto itself, and it does 40 damage for every energy on it, which means it can hit for 400, 500, a lot of damage. It's kind of your finisher.
And that was exactly what I was going to say. It is used to get over the hump against tanky, challenging attackers. So, on that note, when you think of tanky attackers, you typically think of Duraludon VMAX. And this deck, their game plan for Duraludon VMAX is to scoop and go to lunch.
I was about to say, it is to
Yes.
lose.
There's sometimes you just take an auto loss, and that is this matchup's auto loss.
Yeah, they would need to either play their own Path to the Peak, which makes their setup a little bit funky, or play, kind of harkening back to last formats, not last format, but pre-rotation Lugia, play a Canceling Cologne, and then
Yes.
like have the Weirder just nuke it. That's also possible. But yeah, it's a very interesting archetype with some very cute little tricks. But Duraludon is a bit of a challenge that the players trying to build this deck will have to definitely either be comfortable scooping to and losing to and predicting the meta around it, or come up with some way to beat it. Because on paper, you just auto lose.
Yes, and I do think that this is so Lugia, the colorless version, is going to be a solid tier deck during this upcoming format. One of the reasons why is the positive matchup into Lost Box. And this is actually where I'm kind of curious here is because we obviously missed the early part of the game, and maybe Ben had to bench as he did in order to get going. But not having a Snorlax down seems kind of challenging into this Lost Box matchup because that's really what he would want to be using here.
Yeah, Snorlax, we see one in his hand. He is bench locked because of that collapsed stadium, so it's a bit of an awkward position to be in. But yeah, that Snorlax, I mean, Lost Boxes themselves play it for the mirror. Its ability prevents it from being affected by attacks, which means it's
Yes.
immune to Sableye, which means you have to hit it for 250 with a Dragonite that then gets knocked out by something else, hit it for 110 twice with a Cramorant, and in the instance of having Therapy Energy on it now, it just gets to keep hitting for 180. You don't even care.
Exactly.
So it's an incredibly powerful tool that Lugia now has against Lost Box, which can be a bit of an awkward matchup. Um, and, as we've been talking about Lost Box, Nick here is playing Lost Box. He's playing Lost Box Kyogre, probably very similar to the one that had, 3 top 8 finishes in Milwaukee just this past weekend. A very difficult deck to pilot, a deck that is getting, in terms of the way that it's built, better thanks to the inclusion of Jet Energy, being able to essentially have a switch and an energy attachment in one, and being able to use 2 Comfies for the price of one, is very cool.
Well, tell us a bit about that Jet Energy, because that is one of the new inclusions in Paldea Evolved.
Yeah, so what Jet Energy does is a brand new colorless energy. It offers 1 colorless energy for your attack cost, but when you attach it for turn to a benched Pokemon, that Pokemon is then, you see the name Jet, it's shoved into the active. So the
Absolutely.
advantage you get out of that is when it comes to sometimes Lost Box, you'll have your Comfy in the active, you'll Flower Selecting, attach for turn, retreat, Flower Selecting. Well, now you can kind of skip a step there. You can Flower Selecting in the active, attach to a benched one, it then becomes active, Flower Selecting, then retreat. So you essentially get to slip in one more kind of either retreatment, one more Flower Selecting, switch into your Cramorant for a little bit less resources than you would have before, which in a deck like Lost Box, which has to burn so many resources and make so many difficult decisions, Jet Energy is a very nice inclusion to have.
Well, and also, anytime a card can do multiple things in a single deck slot, that's amazing.
For sure.
Because you always want to try to be as efficient as possible and fit as many bells and whistles in as possible. So going to the game here, it looks like Nick did decide to take the Radiant Greninja off of the prizes with that Hisuian Heavy Ball, which seems good. I believe he's at 7 or 9 right now. So he's only 1 card away from getting Sableye off here if he wants to. And he has a vacuum in his hand. So we could absolutely vacuum away the Forest Seal Stone on his Raikou and start Sableyeing. But that being said, does he want to? Is it a better move to go in with a Greninja right now to clear off the Archeops from the board?
Well, Ben does have that Serena in play.
He
Which
does.
then does kind of, unless you're doing Greninja twice in a row, it does kind of invalidate the Greninja into Sableye play, which is the whole point of playing that Serena. Yeah, I don't really know necessarily what Nick's game plan is here. I mean, he does have 3 more turns to go as Ben's only at 4 prizes. He unfortunately does have a 2 prizer on the bench with only 200 HP, so Lugia or Wordier can just destroy that Raikou if Ben has a boss.
We can't quite see Ben's hand, so I'm not sure if he does. But yes, agreed. It looks like there's an Iono in hand. I can't see what else.
I think that might be a
So
research.
research.
Research Archeops, Lugia. I don't necessarily know if Ben has the best hand in the world. I mean, we did see him escape rope up that Serena, so clearly he has either in the deck or in his hand enough energy to, you know, retreat without any issues.
Well, it possibly. I think also what he saw coming was a play from the Raikou, and Wordier, I believe, has 210 HP.
I am not sure.
Okay, it's either 200 or 210 HP. So going into the Wordier, Raikou could hit it for some solid damage. And in that case, either take 2 prizes or set up for 2 prizes if, say, Nick got the Dragon out instead. So of the items on his board, rather than feeding an Archeops or putting up the damaged Lugia, it sounds like his choice was put up the Serena to take the hit and force Nick to expend more resources to actually hit what he wants to.
Yeah, and it does look like Nick is going to go for a Greninja play here. I don't think there's a realistic way to go for like the double Greninja, just because then you're out
I
of
would agree.
Mirage Gates to do the Kyogre play with, which is kind of your finisher here.
Yes.
But more damage is going to be on the board. Maybe he like chunks the Lugia and one of the Archeopses, and then kind of goes overkill on an Archeops with a Sableye. There's a lot of ways that Lost Box can play the game. I'm sure there's things we're not seeing, partially just because we kind of got into the middle of the game. We don't know exactly what he's lost zone. We don't know exactly what's in his hand. But Lost Zone always has some path to win the game, which hopefully Nick has a plan here.
And I'm sure he does. And I think it's all going to be mapping out what your prizes are. I was talking to someone earlier today about kind of how to take the next step in gameplay, how to improve as a player. And the first thing I asked them is, why are you asking me about this? The second thing I asked them was, how are you trying to approach your games? How are you mapping out your games? How are you figuring out how you're going to win when you're playing? And that's a huge part of what Lost Box has to do because you have so many moving pieces, so many levers to pull that you have to be very careful and precise about how you plan out what you're going to do. Otherwise, you may not have the resources to get there. And Lost Box almost always has the resources to do whatever they want, but you just have to pick the right thing.
Yeah, and after kind of looking at the board for a little while, I do see the path that Nick has here. Um, Once Ben uses the Serena, that Lugia on the bench will have 160 damage on it.
Yep.
That means that a Sableye can knock it out with a Lost Mine, and then eventually, I'm assuming Ben will then like probably bench the Snorlax to prevent an Echoing Horn play. But if Nick is able to maybe Lost Vacuum that stadium just in time, and then use Echoing Horn to get Luminion back onto the bench, and then get that late game Kyogre play. That's
Yeah.
kind of the just based on the
Right.
state of the game. That's kind of the path I'm seeing here for Nick.
Absolutely.
I think that's definitely a possibility.
And that is typically the play from the Lost Box end. I'm looking up how much HP Werder V has. Um, it is you take a single prize, or excuse me, you take a two prize knockout just as is, put yourself to four prizes, and then at that point, it is 220 HP. So okay.
Okay.
So at that point, that is when you go for the four prize Kyogre play. And like you're saying, Ben filling his bench, knocking off Luminion is a very excellent play. And so what Nick's probably going to want to do is what you're saying. Bounce the stadium, force an open bench slot, put down the V Pokemon there, and then take the knockout. And Nick still has at least one more turn after this in order to make that happen. Because with only one two prizer on board, Ben's going to have to take a single prize knockout here, and then he can gust for the two prize knockout before having to take a last knockout in order to win the game.
Yeah, Ben will discard that Snorlax, which is a little awkward because it means that if the Lugia gets knocked out by Sableye, he might not have a one prizer to stick in that spot. So Nick might not even have to remove that stadium, but we'll have to kind of wait and see.
Absolutely. I imagine he's playing two of the Snorlax at least, going with the colorless mode. And do have the Luxray, but unfortunately, well, fortunately, Ben's ahead in the prize race, so he's not going to be able to put that down very easily this
Yeah,
game.
it can only be benched when you're down in prizes, which Ben will likely never be.
Right. And to be clear, when we say down in prizes, when you have more prizes remaining than your opponent.
Yeah.
I always mix that like up in prizes, down in prizes. It can mean so many things.
For sure, for sure.
So it looks like here Ben is going to take the knockout with he's going to go in with Lugia.
Okay.
So this is interesting. I could see what Ben is doing here, if I'm reading it right, is he's going in with Lugia to take a knockout on the Greninja, and then he's going to try to take a knockout on the Raikou with Wordeer. And the reason for that, and he's bouncing his own collapsed.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, in that case, I sure hope he does have stuff to bench because this could be a bit of an awkward situation
I'm
here.
assuming he does have multiple single prizers, or he's going to try to evolve up into a V-Star before Nick has a chance to do the Kyogre play.
Yeah, I want to assume that he has a plan here. Nick also, just by the fact that the Raikou's on the bench, really is on one turn less of one turn shorter of a timer than he'd like to be.
Yes.
He really, this turn he needs to get the Sableye knockout. Next turn he needs to get the Kyogre playoff.
Yes.
Otherwise, if Ben has a boss at any point, this game is done for.
Correct. And luckily he is at 11 in the loss zone now after that chorus. Oh boy, you're gonna have to dish the chorus there, Nick. I think because you've got one in the lost zone already, and you're gonna need a couple of those recyclers to pull off this play.
I think he has two in hand. He might want to keep the chorus just to be able to dig through the rest of his deck.
He has a chorus in hand as well.
Okay. Oh, then never mind. I think he might be okay. Not having the Greninja does make things a little bit awkward. Again, I don't know how much he's altered his deck for the Paldeia Evolved format. I don't know if he's playing Super Rod, maybe a way to get that.
Well, he may be regretting not taking the Cramorant right now. Because I guess the Cramorant
wouldn't really do anything. I think
he just needs a Sableye.
Yeah, and we see Ben has the boss in hand. Obviously, if Ben didn't have the boss in hand, Nick gets one more turn to keep things going. But the issue here is that if Nick does not get damage on the board this turn, the Serena will pull Lugia out of range of Sableye, and the game is over.
Oh, that is not what you want to see this late in the game. So I'm guessing there's a Sableye in there, and Nick is just feeling the pain a bit from not being able to find it.
Seems like it. It's definitely not an ideal situation.
So yeah, so it does look like he does have a Cramorant in hand, but I'm not sure what, or maybe a Manaphy, but I'm not sure what his plan is here. And I don't think
Yeah.
Nick is sure what the plan is here.
He. Hmm.
So the one thing Nick could do here is just go in with the Raikou.
Yeah, I see the Mirage Cat. I see the Switch card. He might just want to go for the Raikou.
But he needs to have a Mirage Gate remaining for the follow-up play.
Yeah, we know he's used at least 2.
Yes. All right,
He
well, he's
might
got
just go for all the
plenty of energy in
recyclers
there.
here. Yeah, if there's a Mirage Gate prized, or if he's not able to get one, available to him, for next turn, um, I keep saying like, and then this game is over, but like he really is kind of on the wire here. Like
Yes.
he is
Oh,
playing
that
a
is the
very
Kyogre in
dangerous
hand,
game.
actually.
Yeah, he has the Kyogre, but you could hypothetically go for the Kyogre play here, but that's way too risky.
And taking 3 prizes here, unless... Well, his deck is not pure energy at this point.
Yeah, you have to hit 5 energy while simultaneously not decking yourself out. So say that your deck is like 3 random cards, 6 energy. I mean, if you hit 4 energy, you do 200. Like, what do you do at that point?
I feel like you want to keep the Psychic there, but... Or put the Psychic on there, but maybe that's just me.
I mean, he has more recyclers.
He
Like the
does, he
Raikou is
does.
inevitably getting knocked out.
Yeah, very true.
So I guess he'll probably be okay.
And so now I'm curious here if Ben's going to be able to judge or do anything to disrupt Nick's hand. How I know Lugia currently plays maybe a judge, but how? I don't know if I love that decision either, because I think you want to save your switching outs in order. Oh, and he drew into the energy. There you go. Oh, that was a very good pickup for Nick. The nest ball and the rope.
That is very good.
So he may be able to completely empty his deck this next turn, find that last Mirage Gate. Not completely, but with a Colress, he actually should be able to find the next Mirage Gate, fill his deck with energy, and then with that Echoing Horn, end the game.
Yeah, we see Ben here nest balling. This is kind of the issue I talked about earlier. I don't know if he has any more 1 prizes. He has that Snorlax.
That's good.
And maybe maybe he has something else. I don't know exactly what's in his deck. But if he doesn't get a Collapse Stadium or a 5th basic onto the bench, Nick can do an Echoing Horn play. Okay, which I guess he does not have any more basics to put onto the bench.
Does not appear so.
He will stack up the Weird Ear because it doesn't need to do.
Should be. So it's 40. So it looks like there's already 3 on there, 4, 5 on there.
Double Turbo effectively provides 60 damage.
Yes.
Because it nerfs itself.
All right.
Yeah, it really comes down to if Nick is finally able to get this Kyogre play off, because Ben will be at 1 prize remaining. He does have the rope to get the Weird Ear onto the bench. He has the Echoing Horn to get a Lugia or a Luminion onto the bench. He has a lot of the cards he needs. The one card he's really missing, though, is the Mirage Gate. That's kind of the problem here.
But with a Colress and 2 Comfy, he should be able to see his entire deck and snag that gate.
Yeah, provided it's not prized, there
Correct.
is a possibility for Nick to pull it out here. Again, assuming Ben doesn't have like an Iona, we don't know if he plays it. If he does, it'll make things awkward, but I don't know if he has one.
That should be the knockout, I believe. 1, 2, 3. Oh, well, there's a Serena. All right. All right, we'll heal up the Archeops. Get set for the knockout. Ben is counting very carefully.
I believe it's doing 220 damage.
Which, there you go. That's what you need. All right, and then Ben goes down to 1 prize, and he does have an open bench slot. Ooh, and there's the Clara, which fortunately doesn't help too much.
Yeah,
here.
he wishes he had the Greninja still out, but at this point it's just too late. You just kind of have to do what you can with the resources you have.
Well, yeah, I think Clara is an acceptable play here, but you're really gonna need to just try to thin everything out. There's no Mirage Gate in there.
It's either discarded or in the prizes.
Is it not in his? He does not have one in hand, correct?
I don't believe he does. Maybe I missed something. It's been a little, we can't always see their hands just based on the angle they hold it. So maybe he has it.
That is not the expression of a happy man, though.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Nick does not look too happy.
No.
Yeah, there's always the chance that he kind of misses it by 1 card.
I do not see a gate in there.
Yeah,
or a Raihan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think he has it. Yeah, he can get his deck down to 0 cards. He can get all those water energy into those energies just in general into the deck. He can set up the Echoing Horn. He can set up the Escape Rope. He can do everything he wants except for get energy on Kyogre, which is
Yes.
what'll make all of that worth it.
Exactly. And so this is where even attaching last turn wouldn't have helped because you would still need a second attachment. So I think this may be no, I don't see a play here where Nick can still win this game because with Ben only having one prize remaining and Nick using his supporter for turn to draw or get Pokemon out of the discard, there's not a lot he can do here.
Yeah, and we know Ben has a boss in hand.
I think the biggest thing is Ben going to get something stuck active, and I don't think so. So I think at this point, Nick is just contemplating how he's going to end his turn and lose, rather than like, is there a route for him to win?
Yeah, and we
Unless
we
I'm
see a
missing
jet.
something.
I no, I think you're perfectly right, and I think that it might be a jet energy in Ben's hand. Either way, I think there's also a double turbo. There's a lot of energy. I think Ben is fine here.
I would agree. Ben is probably fine here, especially since Wordeer will be able to take a knockout on anything Nick throws in the active.
Yeah, even if he was able to somehow get a Raikou attack off, where Deer does have a V-Guard energy has effectively 250 HP. Raikou's not knocking it out. Nothing's knocking it out.
So let's see what Ben decides or what Nick decides to do here. What he may do is Echoing Horn and then Rope in order to bait Ben into putting up a 2 retreat cost Pokemon and hope that Ben does not have the double turbo in hand or energy in the deck.
Well, I mean, I
I don't
see
think it's
what you
gonna work,
mean.
but
Yeah, like Echoing Horn a Lugia, and then hope that Ben gives you that Lugia. I see
exactly.
what you mean,
Because
but
Ben knows that his loss condition is having 2V on the bench.
yeah, but that I don't know. Like, if your opponent does have the Mirage Gate, that is such an egregious misplay that something must feel off. Like
Yes.
that would be such a weird play to do. I'd be very
Like, is he crazy like
suspicious.
a fox? Like,
Yeah,
something
like
is off
Echoing
here.
Horn, and then you let me give you the V. Like, what's going on here? Like, what's the plan?
To be honest, you hear it in poker. You hear it a lot. Sometimes you just play the player and not the game.
For sure. No, I don't think Ben's getting played here.
I don't think Ben's gonna
Yeah,
get played.
Yeah, Nick is playing about as well as he can. Just kind of like he is showing off that the deck is capable of doing exactly what it intends to do. It might just kind of
Absolutely.
be like an exercise in sequencing at this point. Obviously, he doesn't have the Mirage Gate. The play will not happen. But he is showing us that, I mean, like -1 card, being in his prizes or maybe being lost zoned. This deck can have an insane comeback.
Yes, indeed.
So
And was missing a Sableye and the gate. Ugh.
there's the gate. Yep.
That is the game right there. Ben is going to take down Nick without him having the ability to just take 4 prizes there. And it looks like Wordier was just going to do a whole lot of damage to that Raikou.
Oh yeah.
Yep, and Ben's just laying it on. All right, so we'll go ahead and get off to give you guys a quick break here before the next round. So just as a reminder, we have locals here every Thursday night for Pokemon TCG starting at 6:30. We have a tournament. Once a month, we have a Learn to Play event too to try to bring people in, help them learn the game. And if you're not a Pokemon person and you just decide to join us, thanks for joining. And Nerd Rage Gaming has Magic, Digimon, One Piece, anything else your heart could desire. So come on by. Like we said, we have Paldea Evolved and a bunch of different other sets for the different games in-house. So we'd love to see you out here. But take a few minutes and we'll be back for our last round. Welcome back, everybody, to our last round of our locals tonight. We have, well, I should start with it. We have two 3-0 players today, Ben and Eli, and y'all have already seen enough of their faces, so we're going to try to give you...
Reno and Eli, I believe.
Reno and Eli? I
Yeah,
thought it was Ben.
I believe it was Reno.
It was Reno? All right. Well, you know what? I love Reno too, but he's playing Arctina. I saw a lot of Arctina this weekend since I played it, so we're going to give you guys something cool. We are giving you Larry playing Meowscarada EX, which, in case you see that they're not in English, that's actually my deck. So, Larry, doing me good with it, against Tim playing Baxcallbur with... Rafal, do you want to tell him with what special stuff?
So I have been informed by Tim himself and viewers that he is playing Greninja V Union.
I am here for it.
Now I'm gonna look up this card real quick because it has some fascinating attacks, some of which, honestly, against this Meowscarada deck could be absolutely devastating. So you maybe keep talking about a bit about this Meowscarada deck. I will get right back to us about this Greninja.
Absolutely. So this Meowscarada deck, I put it together, which probably means it's not great. But Larry seems to be doing well with it. So the whole point of this deck, as we talked about when Ryan was playing it before, is that you use the ability to discard a grass energy from hand and snipe 30 damage onto your opponent's bench. And in doing so, you set up large KOs of Meowscarada, and in this case, you can use Radiant Alakazam to move damage counters around on your opponent's board in order to set up knockouts. So the entire goal of your deck, turn 1 to turn 2 ish, is to set up as many Meowscarada and Bibarel as you can to be your engine both for attacking, spreading damage, and draw. And it looks like Larry had a pretty good first turn, getting 3 kitties and a beaver down on the board.
Yeah, Larry's doing all right for himself. On the other hand, we have Tim here with a level ball, with a nest ball, getting himself out of Chen Pao. It is not just, it seems like it's not just Baxcallbur, Greninja, it is also Chen Pao.
Yes.
It plays kind of the main partner for this deck, which is going to be definitely a very popular archetype moving forward in this meta. But, hopefully we get this Greninja showing up this game. For anyone who doesn't know what it does, it has multiple very useless abilities. It has Ninja Body. It is unaffected by item cards, so you can't Pokemon catch it. It has Antidote Jutsu, which makes it unpoisonable. And once a turn, you can look at your opponent's hand. All of those do not make it worth playing. However, it has Twister Shuriken for a cost of 3 energy. It does 100 damage to every benched Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, if Meowscarada does not set up, everything is getting knocked out.
That is true. That is true. To be fair, Meowscarada does play Manaphy, so Tim very well could knock out the Manaphy, but until that point, Meowscarada can hang on a bit. And so, talking about the Baxcallbur, because Rafal, I know you've been testing, kind of putting together this Chimpao Baxcallbur list. Can you just talk us a little bit through conceptually what it tries to do and what the goal is?
For sure. So, as someone who had a terrible run at 2013 Nationals with Blastoise Kyurem, I'm very familiar with this deck. The idea of Chen Pao is that its ability is essentially Capacious Bucket. Once a turn, each of your Chen Pao, every time they're active, can look through your deck for 2 water energy, which is very nice. On the other hand,
sorry to jump in real quick
of
here,
course.
but it looks like Larry top decked a rare candy.
Uh-oh.
So we could see a knockout on this Chimpao turn 1, depending on how this draw goes. And if Larry, I believe, is going to Ultra Ball those away to get a barrel, hopefully. But yes.
What would he need to draw in here too? Because I believe Meowscarada does more damage if your opponent's active already has damage on it. What would he need to do to get that to happen?
So to take this knockout, he needs a damage counter on the Chimpao. So to do that, he would need a Grass Energy discard from hand, and then an out to Radiant Alakazam to move, which has...
Tim is reading the Japanese card.
Yes. So listen, the man is more educated than I. The Alakazam has a very disappointingly named Painful Spoon's ability.
I love that
Should have
ability
been
name.
Spoonful of Pain.
It's so funny, though.
Should have been Spoonful of Pain. I'm just saying. But the ability basically says you can move 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to their Pokemon in any way you like. So he could put 30 damage on a little Greninja back there and then use Radiant Alakazam to move one of those damage counters. Oh boy, we are very close. So he's got the Radiant Alakazam, which we'll see if Tim sees it. He doesn't. He did not. He maybe Larry did not see what we were putting down.
Unfortunate. That is unfortunate.
But all right, while Larry's continuing to shuffle, please continue to tell us about Baxcallbur and Chimpao.
Of course. So what Chen Pao gets to do is every time Chen Pao is in the active, once per turn, it can search your deck for 2 water energy. So you fill your hand with energy. Then you can rare candy these Frigibax into Baxcallbur, whose ability is the old Rain Dance, the classic ability that allows you to attach as much water energy from your hand onto any of your Pokemon throughout your turn as you like. Chen Pao's attack for 2 water energy lets you discard as much water energy off the board as you like, and you do 60 damage for each one you discard. So Baxcallbur, for Chen Pao, essentially has an unlimited damage cap, essentially just equal to how much water energy you're able to get onto the board. And I might be wondering, well, if I knock out like an Arceus V-Star, I lose 6 energy or 5 energy. What do? You play Superior Energy Retrieval. Discard 2 cards from your hand, get 4 energy out of your discard back into your hand. That's 240 damage that just entered your hand from your discard. So it
A
has a
lot.
very efficient way to kind of just keep pumping out damage. You have a lot of also alternative attackers. Don't sleep on Baxcallbur itself attacking for 130 damage, which is a very nice number. Don't sleep on Radiant Greninja doing 90 and 90 and doing a ton of damage all over the board. It has a lot of different options. People are still kind of figuring out the right way to build it. The deck is very prone to getting Iono'd and bricking. There's not a lot it can do with a one-card hand unless you have something like a Barrel on your bench. So people are still figuring out the best way to build it. So Tim has decided to include the Greninja V Union, which maybe that's the way. Who knows? We are still in the first day of this set being out, so maybe he knows the way.
Absolutely. And I do think one of the interesting things is it's an upside and downside. Baxcallbur loads energy from hand and as much energy as you want from hand. So if they don't knock out Radiant Greninja, like you said, you can go snipe, snipe, snipe as often as you like. The downside is we talked a little bit earlier about we have decks that play from the board and we have decks that play from hand. Larry's deck, Meowscarada, technically plays from hand, but he's building enough of a board with energy on his attackers, the barrel to draw, that he can play from his board at this point.
Yeah. Actually, Dan, how much damage does Meowscarada do?
It does. So Meowscarada does 100. Oh, can you please let
That
them
should
know
be
it does
100 damage. Yeah.
Yes.
So for anyone who didn't notice, Tim does have the Temple of Sinnoh out, which means that the double turbo energy on Meowscarada does not take effect. So the damage is not reduced. That attack actually did 100 damage. We'll get that fixed.
Correct. And so Meowscarada's attack is for 2 colorless energy, does 100 damage. If there's a damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon, it does 120 more damage. So in this case, because the double turbo is not negating any of the damage, it just does that 100 base. And unfortunately, while Rafal was giving me excellent background on the Baxcallbur deck, Larry did miss the grass energy that would have enabled him to get the knockout on the Chien-Pao. And it looks like Tim is playing Iono here, which Larry's probably not too sad to see. Are we going to see a grass energy? We see a grass energy.
Okay.
Apparently, I should have put more grass energy in this deck, but I will say I'm not the best deck builder, but that feels like the deck is working to me, Rafal.
You won a Japanese locals with it, so I will
Yes,
defer to you on the success of this
Undefeated
deck.
champion of Kyoto, a small store in Kyoto.
I didn't know. I was of the whole city.
Yes, of Kyoto.
Dan actually
Yes,
won a
absolutely.
Champions League.
I did not at all. But all right, so getting back to this. So it looks like Tim played the Iono, and he's trying to hit the combo of the Baxcallbur with the rare candy, and he's using Chien-Pao's ability, which is called Shivery
Chill.
Shivery Chill.
They got some.
That's a cool name.
Oh, I was gonna say they got some terrible English attack names. Sorry.
Well, that's Hail Freeze is the attack.
Yeah, Hail Blizzard.
Blizzard?
I don't know entirely.
It's such a hit or miss with the ability.
Yeah,
Seriously.
we get used to some of the Japanese translations, and then
True. And then it's not it. But all right, so with the manual attachment to Chien-Pao on the bench, I'm taking a guess here and saying that Tim does not have the knockout here or the combo.
Yeah, and the awkward thing is that good for Tim for
Ooh.
getting a lot of Frigibacks on the bench, in case they get knocked out. But it does mean that if Larry's able to get a double
Larry, don't bench
Meowscarada
the
snipe,
kitty. Don't do it, Larry. Larry,
Ooh.
bench the kitty.
okay, I was gonna say he could get a Yoga Loop playoff. Never mind.
Right.
Yoga Loop's not happening.
But he could have also gotten a knockout on the bench Frigibacks while knocking out the active Chien-Pao. And you don't need to attach to. I should have talked to Larry about this in advance.
Hey, he's 2-1.
He's doing pretty well with it. All right, but so in general, I would have liked to see there is use both of those energies to snipe one or both of the Frigibacks on the bench, and then use Alakazam's ability to move damage from the active Chien-Pao to the Frigibacks to take a knockout, take a prize, and then, excuse me, I should say that better. Put the Alakazam down, snipe the energy on the bench, then play the Iono in hand, then use Alakazam's ability to take a knockout on the Frigibacks on the bench, and then take a knockout with the Chien-Pao in the active.
So that sounds like the champion of Kyoto talking.
Yes, there you go. We're going to roll with that. So playing the Iono here, I think, is fine. There isn't a ton that Larry wants to play from his hand. Attaching the energy to the Meowscarada is also fine. Knowing that the Temple is in play, I can understand attaching that grass energy, and he drew into Artisan. So, and we see another Meowscarada. Oh, Larry is killing it. Get those kitties out everywhere. I love to see it. So here I'm hoping Larry does take the opportunity to snipe again to put one of Tim's Pokemon in Alakazam or other sniping range.
Yeah, and I think you want to spread it across multiple Frigibax, to be completely
Yes,
honest, because if the one with 60 damage gets evolved, it's kind of all for nothing.
exactly. Completely agreed. And I don't think you'd be at fault for sniping the Chiampao on the bench either. But it looks like
Oh, is that? I thought it had 70 HP. I guess it's a
uh
60 HP Pokemon.
is it a 60 HP? I also thought it had 70 HP. We should check on
Let
that.
me double check.
Yeah, let's check on that. Rafal, thank you for looking into that
Of
while
course.
we watch this. And Larry is doing a good job of thinning his deck, pulling out everyone he needs to, so that way he is set up to when eventually he gets Iono'd back, he's able to take the knockouts he needs.
So the Frigibax that has the alternate art does have only 60 HP. The reason
Ah,
you play it is because it has one retreat.
okay, okay. Well, in that case, Larry's just making Tim pay. And on the bright side, though, for Tim, that's why he put down a bunch of those
Yeah.
Frigibacks on his boards, because he knew some of them could go down.
Yeah, so we're out here planning out this Yoga Loop play. He just needed 2 grass energy
Right.
to take a prize.
That's all I needed. And so, again, as much as I would have liked to see another snipe from the Meowscarada rather than the manual attachment, he is now set up where any energy provides a secondary attacker for him. And it looks like he got an energy off of the prize cards as well, which is great. So Tim is feeling the hurt a little bit. So we'll see if this
Yes.
Iono got him closer to the combo.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the deck plays 4 Irida. You just need 1 Irida to really get rolling. It gives you
Yes,
your rare candy. It gives you your Baxcallbur. He is using Ultra Ball here. I'm really hoping he has that rare candy in hand.
agreed. So
You're
we're gonna see.
anxiously waiting.
That
There's
is
Baxcallbur.
that is a beautiful Baxcallbur,
Yeah,
by
those
the way.
arts are fantastic.
Yes. So we are going to see the rare candy Baxcallbur, which is excellent, which means Tim is, as they say, now gaming. Oh, we are going to see a
Indeed.
Luminion too. Ooh. As much as I love seeing the supporter, unless he evolves this Frigibax, I don't know if I love dropping that Luminion.
Hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see if he can evolve the Frigibax. If he can, great. It looks like he's
So he
probably
must have
going
another
for
rare
that.
candy,
Yes.
hopefully. Because the awkward thing is that he needs a lot of water energy to knock out this Meowscarada, and I'm assuming he probably has a bunch of water in the discard at this point. So he needs that superior energy retrieval to continue to be able to stream attacks out,
Yes. And so Meowscarada has 310 HP.
which is a very unfortunate number for Baxcallbur.
It's a wonderful number for Meowscarada. Yes, it actually is on the lower end for stage 2 EXs. But for Chiampao, you do 60 damage for each water energy you discard, which means you unfortunately would need 6 energy in order to take the knockout on the big
Yep.
grass kitty.
Which he got 2 out of the deck with Chien-Pao, so that puts then 4 on the board. He might already have 2 in the discard. It really kind of comes down to how big his hand is, and if he's
Yes.
able to use that energy retrieval.
Ooh,
Okay.
that'll
Or he just
all
attaches 4 energy.
sure. Yeah,
That
all
works
right.
perfectly fine. He will demolish that cat.
And that is the 6 energy he needed to rock poor grass kitty there.
Yeah.
All right, so Larry attaching that energy in advance can be good. But it looks like he's probably going to go in and drop the Artisan
Yeah, he does
Stadium,
need the artisan in order to use the double turbo energy, he needs to remove the artisan.
which I don't mind that play here.
Or needs to play the artisan.
Yes. So another thing that he could do is he could set up for the game-winning. There's the Alakazam. All right. So there are 2 options here. He could set up for the game-winning play by trying to snipe and set up for an Alakazam or Yoga Loop to win the game next turn. Or he can just knock out this Chiampao, put some damage on the Frigibax on the bench. Unfortunately, he would need a rare candy and Meowscarada to really win the game here, I think.
Yeah, he would need to. Yeah, he need to place damage on the. He would need 2 snipes onto the Frigibax to knock it out, and then a third one that can then be moved onto Chien-Pao.
He could also, though, gust up and knock out the Baxcallbur. Because in this case,
True,
the
but we do
Meowscarada,
know that Tim has one in his hand.
he has a Baxcallbur in hand, but he did not play down the rare candy.
That is true.
And as Larry does need to take 3 prizes, taking a one prizer here isn't the end of the world.
Yeah, maybe you just kind of you could just spread damage. Like you could spread a little bit of damage onto the active Chinpow to knock it out, and then snipe the bench Chinpow so that if it ends up active, which it'll inevitably have to, it'll just be ready for a knockout the next turn.
So Larry here decides to move only one when I think he needs to move two. Because Chiampao has 220 health, correct?
I believe you're correct.
So we'll see what Larry does here. He may also just gust up and hit into the Baxcallbur. Or gust up and hit into something else to set up the play. But I think Larry did want to move 2 damage to the Chiampao if this is the route he was going.
Yeah, I mean, you could go for this like cheeky checkmate play, but something could always go wrong. You never know.
Right, and I think in this scenario, you want to advance your board state. Knowing Iono is a risk, knowing you have a Bibarel on the board, though, I think what you want to do is just say, hey, I'm going to take 1 or 2 prizes this turn and force you to do something about that.
Yeah.
In this scenario, I would almost want to see him knock out the Frigibax, and because you know Tim's going to have to hit with a 2 prizer. And when Tim hits with a 2 prizer, there will be 2 prizes in the active for Larry to knock out.
Yeah, if this Chien-Pao does not get knocked out, and then the Frigibax gets evolved, you could end up with this awkward situation where your only real way to win in one turn would be to like snipe something on the bench, boss it into the active, do like some weird stuff would have to happen. I mean, Tim does have a relatively small hand here.
Well, actually, Bryce, I believe he's supposed to have 210 HP on there. Do you mind checking on that? Because one thing that Larry could do here is unless he heals the Frigibax, he can Radiant Alakazam for 2 prizes and then knock out anything else by moving the second damage counter.
Yes.
And by keeping the boss, yeah, they're just talking out the math here. So it should be 200 with the damage counter already on there. Excellent. There we go.
Okay.
And again, Bryce coming in to save the day. Much appreciated. So then what Larry could do here is this is him setting up that checkmate of next turn he uses Alakazam to move a damage from the Frigibax to the Chiampao to knock it out. Or Alakazam gets knocked out. On the bright side, there is still a Super Rod in deck. So Larry has the opportunity to draw it, even if it's less than ideal.
Yeah, and I was actually playing some testing games against Larry before the tournament started, and Alakazam also has a very awkward amount of HP with 130.
Yes.
Which means Chien-Pao needs 3 energy to knock it out.
Indeed. And also, I should note too, as you mentioned for the other guys, Larry himself got day 2 in Milwaukee last weekend.
Yeah, we have so many talented players. Like, just about every player that's been on stream today has day 2 to regional very recently. We have a lot of really high-level play going on here. We're all learning these decks too, so there's inevitably some funky stuff going on. Larry's cards aren't even in English, and he's 2-1.
Yeah, who would have that?
He's just that good.
It looks... Did Tim just pass?
Oh, he'll move the damage counter.
It looks like Tim just passed.
That is tough.
Oh, man.
Does he have
We're going to see a switch, and Larry has the boss in hand.
Yep, that'll do it.
And that is the game right there. Man, oh, man. Meowscarada showing off that Grass Kitty can do some damage here on stream today. And now, going to something that actually is a top-tier meta deck, don't hate me, Grass Kitty, we're going to bounce over to our other game where we currently have a Gardevoir Mirror. And by Gardevoir Mirror, we have 2 kind of different decks set up and playing it out. So here we're going to see kind of rapid rate. We've got Paul on the left playing Gardevoir EX, from what we saw a little earlier today, playing against Olive, playing the Reversal Energy Gardevoir. And so we are clearly avoiding any slow play penalties here, which is very nice.
This is just their actual pace.
Yes, this is actually how fast they play. That's a lie. I've played against Paul. So he is currently trying to find as many Ralts as he can to put on the board. And then Olive, in a shocking twist, is going to try to do the exact same thing. So Rafal, how do each side want to approach the mirror match here?
So this is very interesting. Paul is playing the Taiwan. So I'm assuming Olive is probably playing the version that got second place at the Taiwan regional. Paul's playing maybe I think 59 cards of the one that got first place at the Taiwan regional. So
Ah,
this is an almost exact mirror match of that finals.
so we have a championship rematch, is what you're saying. Here at
Essentially,
locals.
essentially,
Excellent.
yeah, we got some high quality content here. Paul's deck does play, unlike kind of most Gardevoir decks so far have been built with about one reversal energy. Paul's plays two, and it plays the Luxray. So Paul has a little bit more opportunities to play from behind. Olive's deck is entirely centered around playing from behind.
It
So it's
is.
going to be very interesting who's choosing to take knockouts here. In the Gardevoir Mirror match, Paul has the advantage in terms of having the Cresselia, which I don't believe Olive plays. That Cresselia can slowly just kind of chip away at your opponent's setup. Paul would have to kind of quickly start setting up and using his Gardevoir EX to get the Cresselia working. But if you can get the Cresselia set up, you can just start blasting some Raltses and really crippling Olive's ability to, burn her entire deck down to 0 cards and set up that Mewtwo V Union.
And I think that's kind of harkens to the current Guardian Mirror match is that you use Cresselia to break down your opponent's engine. And now it works because you break down the engine and get to a point where you Roxanne them into oblivion, more or less. Coming to the next format, when you're spamming Iono, you're able to really work down what they're trying to do and then just prevent them from being able to do anything once you've knocked out 2, 3 Curlia and Ioned them into a very small hand. So the downside with that is, like you said, you can't get too far ahead with that play because then Ionos hurt you more than they do their opponent. Side note, huge compliment for the design of Iono because that's exactly what it's supposed to
For
prevent.
sure. Yeah, it's interesting here because, you know, Gardevoir, Paul's version of Gardevoir plays 4 Iono and 2 Research. I believe Olive's is the opposite, plays 4 Research and maybe 2 or 3 Iono. Iono is just always good in a Gardevoir deck, especially late game when you Iono them to 1 or 2 cards. But Olive is more looking to just kind of burn through her deck as fast as possible, set up these big reversal plays, set up the Mewtwo V Union, while Paul is just kind of looking to continually disrupt Olive and have that draw engine on the board to just kind of power through the fact that maybe you're Ionoing yourself to 2. Who cares when you have a Gardevoir, a Greninja, a Cresselia on the board, and your hand is just back to full, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the issue for Paul here is that if he tries to go a little bit too aggressively, and this is kind of where the little interesting dance in this mirror match comes out, if Paul goes too aggressive with the Gardevoir EX, he will end up damaging his own Pokemon, which means that when Olive sets up Mewtwo V Union, those Pokemon will be very easy to knock out. Mewtwo can do 16 damage across the board with Psy-Splosion. Now, that'll knock out 2 Raltses, it'll knock out a Curlia and a half. But if you have a Gardevoir with 100 damage, a Curlia with 40 damage,
Yep.
a Zacian with 160 damage, that's going to get you 4 prizes.
And as a real quick note here, it looks like Olive was able to use Shining Arcana and take an energy off of that. Although she did put it in hand, Paul's very nice and said, "That's okay. I trust you. Don't do that in regionals, kids." So, and it looks like Olive is going to Iono to try to give herself a new hand. And per exactly what you're saying there, Rafal, that is going to be the dance of how hard do I push? How far ahead do I want to go? And how much is it setting me up to get kind of lapped when it comes back around? And Olive dropping the path is interesting here and taking the knockout on the Greninja. So now Paul has a choice here. Uh, Currently, Gardevoir is one-shotting his Gardevoir. And so he has to decide, can he go for the EX, load up the Shining Arcana, or, because we were just talking about it, can he just find a reversal energy to slap down?
Yeah, I mean, reversal energy with no other energy attached will do 150 damage and knock out the other Shining Arcana. So, and that'll lose all of 3 energy, and now Olive's going to be in the awkward situation of having Path of the Peak out. So yeah, this is very, very interesting. The fact that they are able to trade 1 prizers makes reversal energy a lot more interesting than in other matchups
Yes.
where one player might be just trying to, having 2 prizers or playing a little bit more aggressively. They're trading 1 prizers. So there's going to be a lot of turns in this game where neither player can use the reversal energy that is very valuable to them. Um, yeah, this is just very interesting. This is a
And
very fun
so
mirror to watch.
it's a good thing for Paul. So as much as we want to say, like, oh, Olive took the first prize, Olive's ahead, if Paul gets the return knockout with a reversal energy and manually attaches to a different Gardevoir or Gardevoir line, he's suddenly going to be in a very advantageous position because he's going to be set up to take another knockout on the next turn. Whereas Olive is not.
Yeah.
Olive would need to use Gardevoir EX or hit fire off Shining Arcana in order to hit a couple energy. But like you mentioned earlier during the previous match, Olive's deck plays about 6 Psychic Energy.
Yeah.
And as you can see, there's already 3 on the Gardevoir and 1 in the discard. So there's really only 1 to 2 left in deck for Olive to pull with Shining Arcana.
Yeah. On the other hand, what Olive's deck does have that Paul's deck doesn't is a little bit of a higher kind of Super Rod. Usually playing 3, probably not 4, I think 3 Super Rods, which the reason that that version of the deck plays it is because you're playing for Professor's Research. So the odds of you just having to be in a situation where it's like, I don't really want to lose these like 2 energy, 2 out of my
Right.
6 Psychic Energy and 2 Gardevoirs. I'm just gonna have to research it. It's not as much of a problem because you play more Super Rods.
Speaking of Super Rod, Paul just ditched at least one of his, which is less than ideal, I'm sure, from his end.
Yeah, he does play 2. It is a resource that he is okay losing. That is the
That's gonna
legendary battle
discard,
pass
Metal
from
Energy.
game 1.
Good, good. It's a spicy tech. So it looks like Paul saw a lot of Psychic Energy there. Ooh. But
No
no
reversal.
reversal energy.
He cannot use.
Maybe he did see a stadium, though. Yep. It looks
Yeah,
like
all
he
right,
does
all
have
right,
stadium.
all right.
All right,
We're good, we're
perfect,
good, we're
perfect.
good.
Everything's fine. And so there is going to be 4 energy down there on the Gardevoir. And then Paul, that's not a bad board state that Paul has, especially knowing that Olive is now even on prizes with him. There's not a lot of opportunity to try to get a reversal energy knockout. It's going to have to be the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, this is very interesting because like Olive cannot use reversal energy here, which means that in order for Olive to attack, she needs to attach basic psychic energy. In order for that to happen, you need to bench Gardevoir EX. If
Correct.
you do that and get a knockout on this Shining Arcana, you will then be up in prizes, which means that then Paul can get a knockout with his Shining Arcana and a reversal energy, which makes this so fun to watch.
And so it's kind of a flip from what Reversal Gardevoir wants to do is you want to always stay 1 prize behind
Yes.
before sweeping for a large KO at the end. And
Yeah.
Olive, weirdly enough, by taking the aggressive knockout here, has actually put herself in a spot where now Paul's playing the come from behind game.
Yeah, honestly, like Paul, as much as it kind of sucked for Paul to have to put this 40 damage on the Gardevoir, evolve his EX to do this, Olive kind of wishes this was a reversal energy on the Gardevoir.
Yeah.
Because if it was reversal energy, honestly, Olive could just pass.
Yes.
But nope, Olive's going to have to keep the game moving because Paul's going to just start taking knockouts.
All right, it looks like we do see the Iono to try to drop Paul's hand a little bit, but with a Shining Arcana and another Curly on the board, Paul's probably going to be seeing cards.
Yeah.
And so 2 kind of notes on that. So 1, I read this in an article years ago. Wow, I've been playing for a long time. Where someone said that one of the greatest skills in a player is to know when to just pass and know when to say that advancing my board means not taking a knockout here. And kind of like what you said, it sounds like that's what Olive had to do here is just pass it on over.
Yeah.
But for Paul now has an opportunity to start bossing and taking knockouts. Although he did discard a boss earlier, but start getting ahead to the point where his board is set up so well that he doesn't care about Olive being able to use reversal energy.
Yeah, ideally, Paul's going to evolve as many Pokemon as possible so that Olive isn't able to just like blast everything with Mewtwo or
Right.
with Gallade or with her own Gardevoirs. But now that Olive has just kind of been like, okay, I got 3 Curlias on the bench, I got a Ralts, I'm just gonna chill. You can have my Greninja for all I care. Paul's gonna get a knockout, and guess what? Reversal energy, which Olive has 3 or 4 of remaining in the deck, while Paul has 1 or 2 of, is gonna be active.
Yes. And looking at Paul's board, though, he now has a second Shining Arcana here, which is huge. And so with that now, he has 2 attackers built. And what he can do at this point is if he's able to find the Cresselia, is start taking knockouts on Olive's board with Cresselia. But it looks like Paul just takes knockout on the Greninja.
And honestly, I don't think he needed to attach that Psychic to the to the Gardevoir. I think he drew it off of Shining Arcana, and I think he probably could have just attached it to the bench one, to be completely honest, because he kind of overkilled that Greninja.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think maybe the hope is that he assumes Olive's going to try to do something like Snipe Curlia or something along those lines, but
yeah,
it looks like we are going to see the Gallade. So Rafal, tell us a bit about this Gallade and why suddenly it's playable and good.
Yeah, so this is Buddy Catch Gallade. The cool thing about The cool slash infamous thing about Gardevoir just as a Pokemon is that the Ralts, Curlia, Gardevoir, Gallade evolution line splits, which allows Curlia to evolve into multiple different Pokemon, which includes this Buddy Catch Gallade. Its ability Buddy Catch lets you once a turn search for any supporter you like, which is really cool because Olive can late game search for that big Iona play, search for Peonia to confirm, and we see like 3 reverse energy in Olive's deck, by the way. Um, search for search for a boss whenever you need it. Search for Peonia to check your prizes. Paul's right now currently checking, making sure he knows what it does. Yeah, there is the boss. So Olive is going to get a knockout with Buddy Catch Gallade using that reversal energy because its attack needs a psychic and 2 colorless. That reversal energy provides it as long as Olive is down in prizes. And the cool thing about the attack is that it then moves the energy to your bench. You have no choice about it. You have to move the energy to your bench. So now there's that Curly on the bench waiting to become a Shining Arcana Gardevoir and have a base damage of 150 thanks to that reversal energy. Well, this Gallade, what, Paul's gonna knock out a Gallade that has no energy on it? But then you don't really want to have to waste a boss in that Curlia, do you? It just kind of puts Paul in this very interesting position on how to play around this.
Yes, and one thing to note, the attack on that Gallade is I forget what the name of the attack is, but for 3 energy, it does 160 damage.
Yeah, it
And
hits
then
for a very
yes,
nice number as well.
and then like you said, you move energy attached to this Pokemon and energy attached to this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon. And in this case, when the reversal energy is the only energy attached, you just move that reversal back to one of your other evolution Pokemon, and
Yep.
you are cruising.
Yeah, and Paul here deciding that what is more important, knocking out the Curly that's going to become a Gardevoir or knocking out the Gallade. He chooses to get a boss, knock out the Curlia, which I this is a brand new matchup with a brand new meta. I don't know what the correct play is here, but Paul is definitely thinking through how to play around this. Olive's deck is essentially now just like 3 reversal energy,
Yes.
and that Ralts. So yeah, she's gonna Artisan for the Ralts.
And I don't disagree with Paul's decision there because I think attacking the energy is not a bad thing. Thank you. Yes, because that Curly just evolved this turn.
Yeah, Olive has limited energy, and that's essentially like a 90 damage buff. So I'm definitely not opposed to going
Ah,
after it.
there's the other reversal energy. And also, Olive discards a boss at that point in order to take the knockout. And so this is again where things get interesting. Side note, and this is a bit of a tangent. Can we just celebrate the fact that a stage 2 deck using a combination of single and multi prizers is now possibly the best deck in format?
Yeah, this is honestly some of the most fun I've had watching this game for a while. This game has been very exciting.
Yes, for those who lived through the dark times of team up through darkness ablaze, I hope you treasure where we are right now and that it's not everyone plays 4 crushing hammers to hopefully have a good turn 1. So I just want to enjoy the fact that we're watching this. And of course it's Gardevoir, because it's always Gardevoir.
It's always
but
Gardevoir. Gardevoir always gets something
still
cool.
nice.
Only
Well,
the VMAX was bad. Only the
yes.
VMAX.
Yes. So, and with Paul setting up here now, he's just trying to kind of rebuild his board. We talked before about taking out the engine. The good thing is that the Gardevoir evolution line is your primary attacker. Good news is it's also your engine. Bad news is, as your primary attackers are getting knocked out, your engine is also going away. So now Paul has to try to reset up his board to make sure that as Olive keeps taking knockouts, he's in a position to respond in kind.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing here is from the list of the reversal Gardevoir I've seen, they typically only play one Gardevoir EX. And I have not really seen it in Olive's hand. There's a chance that Olive has it, and I just haven't noticed it. There's a chance that it's prized.
Yes.
So there's a possibility that if Paul can tell that it's prized, the right play might just be to pass and just
Correct.
develop your board a bit more because Olive won't be able to set up this Gallade to do any damage.
I actually would agree with that. And I would want to see, more than anything else, I would like to see Paul boss the Gardevoir on the bench. Or if that's not an option, like you said, to just pass.
Yeah.
The Gardevoir EX is in deck, and by in deck, I mean in all.
Yeah, so I was wrong. I mean that is like an option that Paul had, but clearly would not have worked. Yeah, the issue that Paul has here is that every prize he takes, even though he's technically up in prizes, inevitably when he gets down to that one prize, Olive is just gonna get the Mewtwo V Union out.
Right, exactly. And so that's going to be problematic. But at the same time, what Paul can try to do is continue to trade back and forth. And as he goes down to his last prize and Olive is down to 2 prizes, Iono. And
Yeah.
say, you're not going to be able to get the EX and load the Mewtwo V Union if I knock out your Shining Arcana Gardevoir and then shuffle your hand back into your deck
Yeah,
to the bottom of your deck.
and Paul playing kind of the traditional Gardevoir variant does have a way to knock out the Mewtwo V Union. Like there's a chance that Paul gets to 1 prize, Olive gets to 2, Olive gets Mewtwo V Union out, blasts something, Iono's Paul to 1 and says like, "Hey, good luck, your turn." Paul could just like get Zacian V out,
Yes.
like save it for the last turn of the game and just demolish that Mewtwo V Union. That is a possibility. The other option that would like the other attacker that Paul has available to him that would knock out a Mewtwo V Union is Shining Arcana with Reversal Energy, but Paul continuously is taking prizes, so that card just hasn't mattered. That card has not been
Right.
effective for Paul. He's
It
essentially playing 2 colorless energy.
it did matter his first knockout, but unfortunately, he has continued to take knockouts every turn, whereas Olive has missed, which means that now Paul is in a position where he has to kind of do something tricky here.
Yeah.
And I think what he really needs is rare candy Shining Arcana. And I don't know if he has candies or recovery left for that.
That's gonna be a Curlia.
So what we may see is a retreat into Gardevoir EX, knockout with Gardevoir EX, and then Iono at the same time.
I agree. I hope Paul does not bench any more Pokemon, because if he benches anything else, Mewtwo will just take 2 prizes.
Correct.
I really hope he doesn't do that, but
Except for a Zacian V.
except for Zacian V, yeah. Although then Olive could just boss the Zacian V.
Well, true. Gardevoir EX, in order to attack with it, he's going to have to put at least 40 damage on it, which means Mewtwo V Union with 4 Psychic Energy would be able to knock it out regardless.
This is difficult. This is very difficult. And there's always the chance that Olive just doesn't get the Mewtwo out here, but that's what Olive has been angling for all game, so I mean,
let's see. Does Paul have the Iono, though? It looks like he has. Oh, no, he just
okay, so
takes
he
the
gets the
knockout.
knockout.
This may be it then.
So if Olive can get the Mewtwo, evolve the Gardevoir, I believe she has game.
I think the Avengers are all assembled in the discard, so it looks like Olive will take
There
the game
we
here.
go.
Yep. If she did not yell Avengers Assemble, I'm going to be very disappointed in her. All right, now don't attach them all to the Mewtwo V Union first.
That's 60.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Paul just had to know what the last attack did. So
Yes.
Olive takes down standard Gardevoir with Reversal Energy Gardevoir. And I think there are definitely some opportunities on either end to kind of play more maybe skillfully around the prize trade.
Yeah.
But part of why I'm excited about this upcoming format is that there is a lot more skill expression. It's going to get trickier.
For sure. There's a lot of instances there where Paul maybe could have passed, which is in previous formats for quite a while now has not really been a very effective strategy. You want to just keep taking prizes.
Exactly.
Why would you want to pass? But yeah, with Olive's deck being built how it is, there's a lot of instances where you would much rather just develop your board manually attached to that. Because if Paul, I mean, this would have required a kind of a different board state, but if Paul had maybe like had a Shining Arcana out, manually attached to that Gardevoir EX so that it had its full 310 HP,
Absolutely.
Olive's play wouldn't have worked there.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, Rafal, thank you very much for joining us today.
Of course.
Thank you to everyone watching and hanging out in the chat while we play today. It's obviously great to have you all out. We love the community here. We love the level of competition we see here. As we talked about, pretty much every round we've showed you guys had a person who's day 2 to regional in the past year. So if you want to have some good competition, we'd love to have you out here. As I mentioned, Nerd Rage will buy Pokemon from you. We'll sell you Pokemon. We'll trade with you. We would love to get some of your product in here. And we have stuff from the new set, Paldea Evolved, available. And as one more note, too, we have Thursday League every week, Thursday at 6:30. And coming up at the end of June, June 25th, we have our League Cup, our first League Cup since the world is back. And we are so pumped to have you here. We have unconfirmed reports that we are going to have many top 16 top players come out here for this cup as one of that last gasp before NAIC and the end of the season. So, as you mentioned, thank you all for being here. We'd love to see you sometime soon, and I hope you all have a great rest of your night.